Hello and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 11th of March, 2018. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Welcome. Welcome.
And Robert Kemp.
Bonsoir.
You've got your cable wrapped around your microphone.
Am I? Wrapped around my head, the microphone that we don't use on this headset that I wear. I hadn't even noticed.
It looks really inconvenient. But apparently you didn't notice. So
probably just eat it.
Yeah, probably just eat that cable.
Yeah, just shove it in my mouth. Conveniently cable tie it away upon my large frontal orifice.
Bienvenue.
Bienvenue. Is that good arriving? I can't remember.
I guess yes. I think it means welcome.
Or is it good travelling?
Well, bien, right, is good, or well,
good. Yeah.
And
Bean.
Venu is to come, right? Good coming.
Good arriving.
Yeah, good arriving. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I am welcome. Yeah, I've been all right. This rainy Sunday evening.
Right.
It's pretty rainy.
It rained for like a minute.
It's a bit rainy.
I noticed that we talk about the weather, and little bits of rain and stuff when we're in different parts of the country slightly, not that far apart, but they do seem to happen at the same time. Like, it did just rain here at the exact same time.
It's just a big ass cloud, just.
I guess. The
like
size
a giant elephant cloud just hanging out, and he's like, I feel like a rain. Boo! That's the noise it makes. Boo!
It didn't sound like that here, to be fair.
No, he's so low pitched. You see, we can't really hear it. It's such a massive elephant cloud.
I see. It's like
blur. If you sped it up, it would definitely sound like blue.
Do you ever hear of the bloop?
The bloop.
Yep.
I think.
The classic.
What's the bloop?
Tell us, Egg.
A mysterious underwater noise that was recorded that was incredibly loud for an underwater noise. And then no one knew what it was for a while, and then it was just like, oh, it's ice.
There you go. End of story.
Yeah, that pretty much covers it.
But why is it bloop?
Because it was a really low pitched, slow noise that took 6 minutes or whatever, but then when you spin it up, it sounds like a bloop.
It just goes bloop? Like that.
Well, it sounded like bloop, yes.
Yeah, like someone's talking about the democratic order of planets.
Not quite.
Doop?
That's bloop.
Very close.
So it was what? It was ice carving off an ice shelf or something, was it?
Just ice making noise. Ice makes all kinds of noise.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
Grinding around.
It's kind of weird how it happened once, though, and doesn't really happen that much.
Oh, no, we're just waiting for the second bloop. If it's that slow, we've only got past the first bloop, so it'll be like bloop, bloop.
It was probably just because of it was probably some big bit of ice that had never moved because of global warming or whatever. Where now we've entered the age of bloop.
The bloop age. Previously it was ice. Now the ice age. Now it's bloop because it's
the ice is all melting. Yeah,
so that's exactly. The new minimalist ambient music project. Bloop age.
Bloop age. I wonder if you could speed up the bloop and sample it and use it in a song.
Oh, probably.
Someone probably already has.
Bloop, 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 bloop. Doop, 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 doop. Yeah, almost certainly. You can turn anything into a song these days. Speed it up into a click, and there you go. You've got a hi-hat for a drum beat.
You can use anything for a hi-hat, pretty much. Speed up. Yeah. If you speed it up.
You just need that little pop, and you could use that in something. Beep.
So, what makes the TS-808 one so special?
I don't know. I think it just cuts through. Might be why people like it, or it's recognizable. I think, actually, a lot of when you're talking about music production of these old things, why people are so obsessed with the 808 and things like that, it's just because people know what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So they go to it.
Yeah, it's recognizable. Still, It is cool. It does work. That kind of nostalgia for that particular.
Oh sure. I mean, there's plenty of like there's a classic. I haven't heard it for a while, but there is a classic like hi-hat noise that was in like mid-90s dance, like every mid-90s dance track for a while.
Eurodance.
Yeah. And so that sample did the rounds. I haven't heard it for a while. You still hear it every now and then, but or the Amen break, for instance, that classic sort of jungle drum beat that's like everywhere and still gets used every now and then.
Well, it's the classic drum break, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's probably only used because they happen to go completely, silent except for the drums for that little section of that old funk song.
It's pretty great. It's got a good sound to it, even there.
Oh, for sure.
Good for cutting about.
What's it? The TS-028 is the cowbell, isn't it? It's not just the hi-hat. The cowbell that doesn't sound anything like a cowbell at all.
Yeah.
Dum, dum.
But they also, I think when they talk about, listen to that 808 bounce or whatever, it's a sort of combination of like all of it really, like the kick and the snare and the tailwoods. And you're right, that is it supposed to be a cowbell? I suppose it is.
It's meant to be, but it doesn't sound anything like a cowbell.
Yeah. The sort of key component of early electro. Exactly. It's a competitor to Speed Tree. They're not as fast,
but they're well more precise.
Yeah, it's a word tree.
Exactly.
Exactly, my dear Watson.
Doesn't sound anything like elementary.
You could use it in the same sort of sentence.
Yeah, you probably could.
But elementary is a different product.
It's a
really simplified tree.
Yeah, slightly different. Well, if someone told Sherlock the answer, he could go, like as a compliment, he could go, "That's exactly. That's exactly right. Your answer was exactly." I'm in my head. It's more exactory when we're just saying it exactly, but it's an exactory statement. Exactorial. Is that like an editorial where people get it right? An exactorial.
It's kind of what editorials are meant to be for.
Editorials are meant to be for opinion, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't make a big bunch of spelling errors or anything in an editorial, otherwise you ruin the whole point. You ruin your own point. Everyone knows if you don't use correct grammar, your whole point is irrelevant.
You've lost.
That's true. It doesn't matter what you're saying. If your grammar is slightly wrong, then just disregard. I don't see so much spelling Nazi-ness around or grammar Nazi-ness around as I used to, I'm sure, on the internet.
Also, at the risk of sounding political, that hasn't stopped the Republicans. Oh, snap!
You're a bit late on that one.
I know.
Hasn't stopped them what? Are they not saying things with correct grammar?
They're not saying correct things full stop.
Yeah. True.
They're saying wrong things with the correct grammar, though.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, apart from the obvious guy at the top, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would class.
He's not even really Republican, though, is he?
What? Just independent, backed by the Republicans? Is that what you mean?
Basically.
Fair enough. I'll take that. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's my
politics.
Satire is definitely not my forte. I'm more known for butt jokes.
Yeah, we were more in the
butt
random
jokes
business.
and bad word spelling jokes.
Well, today we've got exactly.
Yes.
Variations.
Well, that was technically Dan. We just
that was me.
I love that we made it worse by you calling it just bad word spelling jokes. It just doesn't.
That's what they are.
I know, but it just doesn't sound great, does it?
It's not very snappy.
Yeah. Words not written right. Funnies.
They're not written at all.
That makes it better. Should we change the subject or something?
Apparently.
I don't know what to. I was in a helicopter on Friday. How about
that? Okay.
Why?
Was the helicopter also flying, or you just did it?
It was actually flying for a bit.
It flew. Wow.
It flew. Yeah, I just sat in it and it went. Nothing to
You really
do.
weren't piloting it.
Yeah, nothing to do with the two people sat in front of me. Yeah. That was fun. My boss has a helicopter, and he just sort of he parks it in the hangar next to the office. So it was just like going out for a fly. It's Friday afternoon. You guys want to come? And we were like, hells yeah.
What? So you skipped work or whatever with your boss and flew a helicopter, or he did?
Pretty much,
and you were
yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Nice. Whereabouts where's the airfield?
Well, it wasn't an airfield. It was literally the car park of our office.
Oh, really? He landed it?
Yeah.
Is he allowed to do that?
Well, that's where it's kept.
Yeah.
It is technically registered as like an airfield or a helipad or whatever. So it's
okay.
He's totally allowed to do that. So it's just keeps it in the hangar around the back. Gets it out every now and then. It's not uncommon for us to see him do this, but more uncommon for me to be in it.
That's cool.
It's good fun.
Man, that must be expensive.
I hadn't been in a heli before. It was good fun. Very vibratory. No, wait, that's not the right word. Vibration-y.
That's also not right. That's a word.
Very, very jiggly.
Very vibratory.
I don't know. I suppose the silly part of me thought that, as the rotors are spinning above your head, that the sort of force it would produce would be kind of constant, but actually it creates quite a jiggle the whole time, and I didn't really realise that.
Well, that's not really from the spinning as much as it is from just an engine. It's like a car. You get constant vibration from the engine.
I know, but it's a lot more extreme than like you sat in a car and go.
There's a lot more of an extreme engine.
Well, true.
I mean, there are a lot more kind of crazy mechanical forces going on than in like a jet where just air comes in the jet and goes out the back or whatever. It doesn't have to get transferred into drive shafts and all kinds of shit like that.
Of course.
Yeah. So it makes sense that a helicopter would be a lot more vibratory.
Yeah. Yeah. I just sort of didn't really peg that would be how it would be. Like it's quite a feeling. And then nice sets of Bose headphones, I noticed.
Yeah, are they like the noise cancelling ones? Yeah.
Yeah. They were like
basically
special. Well, I think they were noise cancelling, or they were like, at the very least, they were like Bose aviation spec. So
I think they are noise cancelling, and I think they use the same tech, only probably a bit more high grade.
Yeah, maybe, but I don't know whether it was. I don't know if you could just have the same thing by just having a decent cup around the ear, if you know what I mean.
They're probably like part ear defender as well, aren't they? Yeah.
Possibly.
As well as, yeah.
It's not like they were super tight like a proper ear defender is, though. I don't know if you're,
right.
Like those really do clamp your head together.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, they were comfy, and the audio was good. Nice gating on the mics.
Oh, sweet.
So you could breathe and it would not come through, and then someone could say something and it'd be like, except a little bit clearer than that. I did freak out at one point though, because they had the IFR chatter on in the background. I could have sworn I heard someone go, Mayday, Mayday.
That's not good if that's ambiguous, is it?
I'm like, well, I guess that doesn't involve us, but okay, sucks to be that guy.
Definitely. That can't be that common, right? I don't know.
Well, no one else seemed to hear it, so I might have just heard it.
Ignore.
Yeah. It's quite quiet because it's like what do they call it? It's like the differences. Like VFR is like the heli sort of height, and then IFR is like planes and stuff. Like because we're not that far from the Manchester corridor up there.
Ah, right. Okay.
So you have to be a little careful of airspace. Anyway, helicopters are cool.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I've got some friends who are getting their pilot's licenses, but I don't know anyone who flies a helicopter.
Yeah, I think the boss was sort of a little bit downplaying on the whole thing in the sense he was a bit like, it's just aviation with different machinery. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's quite different.
I mean, he's got a point in some ways, but
yeah,
it's kind of more cool, I would say.
probably look more flexible than a plane, I guess. I'm just going to go over here.
Do you have to be able to fly a plane before you can fly a helicopter? Or?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% sure the skills are transferable necessarily.
Well, you must have to learn all of the rules of. Well, there must be a lot of similar things, right?
Well, I guess in terms of air traffic
Hmm.
and that side of it, as opposed to the actual physical nature of moving the thing.
Hmm.
Suppose it's and I'm not sure too much of driving a car really applies, if you know what I mean.
No, that's true.
What's that? Is that the handbrake? No, that's the throttle.
What is it? The cyclic and the collective. Oh, I wonder how much it is like that terrible mod for 1942 that we used to play trying to get get helicopters into a game that didn't have helicopter physics. That was hilarious.
Oh boy,
what was it called? Desert Combat.
Was it just Desert Combat? Yeah, I suppose it was. Yeah, but yeah, that was so hard.
It was funny.
Oh, it was very funny, but really annoying when you actually found someone who was semi-competent.
Could actually do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would just destroy you.
But it was a really, really difficult thing to fly because I suppose it was trying to be as realistic as possible with how that thing actually handled. You tilt to the side, it would go to the side. It didn't really give you any leeway per se. There was no game damping going on to make it easy.
Yeah, because then when they put helicopters into the Vietnam one, they were super easy.
Yeah. Well, I never played Vietnam, but by the time they got to Battlefield 2, it's these are way easier to fly.
Did you not play Vietnam?
No. I think you might have been the only one of us that did.
Oh,
did you?
At least one of you.
Yeah, no, I've never played Vietnam. I think I only saw it at your house.
Oh. It wasn't very good. It was okay. But, 1942 was quite novel, but it wasn't. Vietnam wasn't that polished or anything. It was kind of a bit weird once they put jets into it and stuff. Well, it still is weird. But
Vietnam had good ideas.
Yeah.
That just didn't actually succeed in any of them. And it had the hilarious balance problem of the support guy having all the best guns.
Oh, yeah.
Because he was anti-tank and he had the machine gun. That problem turned up in a couple of other of the Battlefield games later, but it was especially bad in Vietnam.
Well, if we're getting into it, I've always found Battlefield's balance somewhat. Well, it's awkward because it's not exactly. I know it's trying to be somewhat realistic, but it's awkward that if you come across a vehicle and you're the assault guy, it's there is nothing I can do in this situation. I need to just run the hell away.
That was the whole point. That was why vehicles were an important factor in Battlefield, because you actually had to have vehicles to fight other vehicles or actually have
a proper class to deal with it. Yeah. Of which there was normally only one, maybe two if you count the C4 guy.
But that didn't matter anyway, because they fixed that when they just put fucking anti-tank emplacements everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Battlefield 3 and 4 were quite bad for that. Although, not all that effective because they were stationary and you could just, blow them up.
Sure, but then, it didn't matter so much in 3 and 4 because there was a lot more, the levels were more tight, especially in 3. All the city levels were just so enclosed. You only needed one anti-tank guy and he could destroy everything.
Sure, but the big levels were even bigger. That was the weird thing about 3.
Yeah, but they were big because then you had air support, and then the air support just destroyed everything.
Yeah, Battlefield's weird. I think if they returned to 2142, they'd have a little bit more flexibility of making actually just sort of balanced vehicles and stuff. They could have a little bit more fun with it, have a bit more. The aircraft don't have to be jets; they can be hovery things that.
Well, that was the only thing that was it was the one thing that 2142 had was you shoot the mech in the vent. It was the one opportunity you had to be a normal soldier and also anti-vehicle, except it only worked on the mechs.
Yeah, and didn't do a great deal of damage in fairness.
Did quite a lot, but you inevitably just died because you were standing in the open directly under a mech, and chances were
it was just sidestep.
It also knew where you were as well as everyone else in the vicinity.
That's like the forerunner of the Titanfall stuff, though, right? Where when you're in a Titan,
guess,
you're actually too vulnerable, probably, to people rodeoing you.
Yeah, although they did mitigate that somewhat in Titanfall 2. Somewhat. Stealing a battery does a bit of damage, but then they hop off again. They can't stay on you just going, blah!
That's an improvement. Yeah.
It forced you to have the electric smoke in that game, where it's just like, oh, someone's on me, just pop the smoke. Yeah. Well, you don't need it quite so much in the second, because you're not dead from a rodeo most of the time, but
the main problem with 2142's vehicles was that there was, for some reason, even though we were in future tech, there was a massively hard differentiation between anti-tank and anti-air on the anti-vehicle kit. Like, if you were taking anti-air, you were completely incapable of shooting anything apart from aircraft.
Yeah.
Unless you used the mines, I guess, which was your one option. It seems kind of unnecessary with this future where, everything's lock-on anyway. Even the regular missiles can lock on. Or some of them.
You could argue that maybe they'd come up with something like the Javelin that could actually...
But as we well know,
target both.
2142, everyone just used the anti-tank rifle anyway. Rockets were obsoleted by that.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that thing. I don't know, I think I ended up finding myself going back to using rockets quite... because...
Well, you could guide them. That was the one advantage that the rockets had. But the anti-tank rifle was basically for shooting tanks at point-blank range, because you just got behind them and one-shot them, basically. And I just played the anti-air kit for fun on the levels where the aircraft were more annoying. Because no one ever used it, so no one ever... And it was a really, cheap tactic, because no one ever used the actual anti-air kit. The only other thing that locked on the aircraft was an EMP missile, so no one expected it to be an actual missile that would cause damage. So a lot of time you could get kills on the aircraft before you realised that it was an actual missile.
Right.
So they were expecting to just be hit by EMP as in the worst case, right?
Yeah, just be minorly inconvenienced for a moment.
I'm surprised they haven't gone back to that.
Yeah, exactly. They should have.
They've got Battlefront now, haven't they? I don't know if they can do a sci-fi Battlefield now. The suits won't let them.
You might be right, which is a shame, because 2142 is possibly my favourite of the series.
Yeah.
Battlefield 2 was pretty good at the time.
Sure. I think Battlefield 2 I always thought was possibly a little too hardcore for me. I didn't get into it as much as I did 1942.
No, me either.
Even though I probably played a lot more Battlefield 2 because the age of the internet actually properly happened while that was about. Broadband finally came about, so I probably played a heck of a lot more of that. But yeah, I don't think I ever enjoyed it as much as I did.
No, 1942 was the most fun, especially when we played it in an actual LAN cafe.
Proper LAN, yeah.
And I liked the slow aircraft of 1942. I had a lot of fun dive bombing shit.
Mm.
I mean, some of the levels were a lot of the levels were pretty terrible and terribly balanced. I remember spending a lot of time on Berlin, going between those three basic areas.
Oh, I love Berlin. I loved that. Berlin was so much fun.
But the actual foot combat was, it's pretty bad.
It's
okay.
No one part of that game is its strong point if you compare it against anything else that was happening at the time, really. It was just the fact that it was all combined.
You could drive the aircraft carrier while there were people trying to take off from it, and it didn't really work, and it was hilarious.
No, the physics kind of skanked out.
But nowadays, they never let you drive the aircraft carrier.
No.
Beach it onto Wake Island hilariously. And then everyone is just jumping off the end of it.
Yeah, they've been fixing them in place, unless you count the Levolution stuff from 4 where you could make one of them crash. But that was a canned event. Had to be triggered. I don't even know how you triggered that.
I think you had to you C4 on or explosives on the wind turbines, right? Was that on that level with the storm? You had to make the wind turbine explode, and then that mysteriously causes one of the ships to crash into the island.
Something like that. Yeah, some weird trigger. Or was it just like occasionally because the storm is bad, it would crash? Or
maybe I was never sure what the actual that level.
Or was it one of the rush maps where it's like if you got to a certain point, it just crashed?
No, it was definitely in combat. That level was less. I never knew what the actual trick was, unlike the building collapse, where it's like obviously you have to go and use C4 on these specific parts of this building or whatever.
I think the Battlefield 3 was pretty good. 4 was slightly less good, I think.
Well, as we always say, 4 was less good because of the levels.
Yeah, the maps weren't too hot. I do enjoy Battlefield 1, but it's a bit of a shame that the actual, because it's a bit hard on its requirements, that it's tricky for Zach to play, and
also there's all the rumors about Battlefield 5 as it always is, but
it's got to be Battlefield's year this year, right? Or what else is EA going to put out this year?
Yeah, nothing, I guess, apart from remakes. But Battlefield 5, it's just going to. At this point, they're basically all the games are that Battlefront engine now, that Battlefront style of combat.
Yeah,
and it's just I don't know if that's going to work very well in a regular ass Battlefield game.
Well,
one has that it's weird. It's kind of weird for one, but then it's so alternate history World War One. It almost works.
Well, yeah, weird steampunk World War One, right?
Yeah,
yeah. There is something. I think I know what you mean. Is it something that there's to me, I would describe it as both Battlefield 1 and Battlefront have a softer feel.
Yeah,
just to how the movement feels and how the aiming feels. It's spongier in some way. Whereas the original Battlefield games are always quite sharp.
Yeah.
Not quite sharp, but pretty sharp. So yeah, I wonder if they'll stick with that direction in the latest one, or I would wager you're right, and that it will be this squidgy feel to Frostbite is what they want. Maybe they think it's maybe it's the Killzone argument where they think it carries a bit of weight. Or something.
I guess they haven't had this fail in a regular Battlefield game yet.
Yeah,
they've had it fail in Star Wars, and they've had it fail in World War One, but they haven't done a regular Battlefield yet.
I don't think Battlefield 1 is a failure.
Well, I mean, it's okay, but it's not great. That's enough of a failure to me.
Oh, I don't. I think it feels fine. It's just different. But given the precision of modern weaponry, maybe that doesn't work.
Well, maybe. Assuming they go to modern again.
Yeah.
Because there's still rumours about it being World War II again.
Oh, really?
Call of Duty did.
Battlefield
Oh, wow.
2?
Yeah, that would be great if they decided to make it Battlefield 2, because that would completely... As if 1 didn't already fuck with the naming system enough.
Just call it Battlefield WW2 like COD did. And then...
Yeah, pretty much. Well, as we keep saying about every time this comes out, you just 1944, I guess. They already did 43.
Oh yeah, of course they could do 44.
then they've only got one more, 1945, and then you're out. Then you've run out of options.
But they're so far apart. I think they're not gonna care about that.
No, of course not.
Or maybe they go 1942 June edition.
Yeah.
Only the summer maps. Then they put out the expansion for here's December.
Well, it's kind of what they did with Battlefield 1, I guess, when they made the Russian
Road to Rome, didn't they, as well?
Oh yeah.
I guess they already did that.
Do you reckon they'll pivot to the free DLC model in Battle? Because Battlefield's the one stalwart of theirs that's still
Who
sticking.
fucking knows what EA's going to do about DLC and microtransactions?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they're going to come up with another evil plan that doesn't look, or that
evil.
People won't. Yeah, it doesn't look as evil.
What are they going to do for Anthem? That's
that is the big thing.
Upcoming problem that they're going to have.
We talked about how it got delayed, right?
Yeah.
another year in the hopper, probably to resolve that. I mean, no, for all we know, that game's just not going to make it. But
Or
the
if-
microtransaction stuff is the least of their worries.
Or if
But-
not to resolve, then to just hope that the buzz dies down before they release the same system again.
Well, I didn't think of that. Yeah, it's not time to fix it. It's time to just.
Hope that people will forget.
It'll be fine by then. Everyone will be doing it, not just us.
Everyone will be back to doing it.
Yeah. Online Pass will return.
They already have it running through Origin, though, so they don't need nothing.
I mean, there's an argument that keeps resurfacing at the moment, and like regarding this, this stuff, and that's well, it's been around for years actually. It's like the $60 argument, right?
Yeah.
That games should be allowed to just charge more than $60 if companies are really struggling to make their money. I mean, the
not
evidence.
like
no one's stopping them technically, are they?
No, not really. It's sort of just one of those sort of like market comfort zones, right? They don't think that they could sell a game if it was more than $60. Just to the casual market, I suppose. Monetization aside, I suppose most of the money on a game is made in its initial sale, right? With the exception of games like Overwatch and Rocket League, and that actually managed to do monetization in a somewhat acceptable way. So yeah, that came up recently again, and sort of got fueled a little bit by extra credit. So I'm a big fan of on YouTube, sort of putting a video out saying hey, games really should cost more than $60, or we need to solve this monetization thing. And which has caused a bit of a flare up, because it's like none of the companies that do these games with monetization are under particular financial stress, right? EA are not financially.
It was basically extra credits versus Jim Sterling, and they had like a free video argument between each other.
Yeah, pretty much. Because Jim's always been very much like just. Well, we know his stance really. He's like, just monetization can be done, but everyone the routes that they do it are always like the worst. It's like monetization has to be worth something and predictable, and your money has to actually
It doesn't
be
matter.
fair.
It doesn't matter anyway,
fairly
because
used.
like games can cost more than $60, and it wouldn't even be that big a deal, because like we're talking about $60, and it's like it's not that long ago that there were things were like 50 and 45. Literally within the last 10 years,
Well,
prices have gone up like $10 to $15.
I think actually in some respects, like in America, I think this is actually that's less true, because I think the $60 tag is held way more than the British tag has. The British console market definitely saw a spike.
The only reason it seemed less extreme in America was from our perspective anyway, is because of the earlier consoles being a thing, when then like the SNES and stuff had $80 games at that age.
Yeah, or the N64 being the N64 was the closest we got to that, right? Because up to that point, we were used to brand new games being £30 at most.
Yeah,
I guess, and then here comes cartridge-based modern games coming out at like £50 or more in some cases, and that was a hell of a upsell. And now we're looking at it, and it's like, oh, that number's kind of normal now. So for us, that's not too outrageous. But I think and I might be totally wrong on this, I think in the US that $60 tag is held for a very long time, like a lot more than
I don't know
here.
if it has, or maybe the $60 one has, but then there's been like indie games, like when Xbox Live on 360 was first out and everything was coming out for $10, and it's like now everything comes down to $20.
Yeah, but then there were other reasons why that was a decent price point, because Microsoft put so many restrictions on what arcade games could be in the early days.
They didn't have to charge that, though,
Theoretically.
I guess we could talk about this with Into the Breach, but like I would probably have paid double what they were charging for Into the Breach. What was it, like
What are they charging?
12 quid or something?
Is it really?
Yeah.
I thought it would be like a 16, 20, something like
I
that.
don't remember.
20 would be fine, man. Anyway,
Although if you can switch that around and compare to like another thing we're going to talk about, the first DLC for Splatoon, or even just the Zelda's DLC, kind of expensive.
Yeah.
Well,
for what they contain.
That's Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. They're on the other end of the scale.
yeah, I suppose they are. Those two are a little. Well, I don't know. Is the Zelda one really that pricey? You're getting quite a lot of content in the extra For the fact you get those 2 packs in it, and with like the challenge stuff and the story stuff and all those minors.
You could make an argument about how much content those actually contain, because especially the challenge, the Master Sword thing, is basically just taking levels that they've already made and mashing them back. Like, it's basically reused geometry, pretty much 100%.
It's definitely not as good, nowhere near as good value per dollar as the base game, right? That may be 60, but there's so much value there. I think it's okay because it's not necessary to enjoy the game or whatever, and fans end up paying more. I think that's a reasonable way of doing monetization, right? It's like completist people have to have the Champions Ballad or whatever, and they end up paying, more per unit content. Or
I suppose the Zelda case is a little more interesting because it does actually unlock other things that let you do other things in that world, and therefore you're like the act of a simple new item that behaves differently can open up a world of possibility for the hardcore players, right? So they will get way more out of it than perhaps you and I that just want to bung our way through the set path.
Yeah.
And that's part, of course, for any like update like this. If Overwatch charged for its new characters, one might argue that a single Overwatch character actually does add a ridiculous amount of possibility, but not just for those playing as them, but those playing against them as well. So even the guys that aren't paying for the DLC get something out of new characters.
That's true.
Therefore, perhaps justifying their price a little more. I mean, that's true of fighting games as well, right? Like, you need to, some of fighting games mentality is like you need to own all the characters in order to understand all the characters. Therefore, you're actually getting an advantage by having it. Therefore, the price doesn't seem too unreasonable to those that are really deep into it. And also, making a fighting game character is friggin' hard. I don't know. It's obviously it runs the gamut. Ninty have disappointed me, I guess, with their prices simply because that Mario Kart foray was such a good deal.
Yeah.
And we thought, yes, Nintendo, this is how you do DLC. This is dead on. And yeah, it's not been quite that since.
Wasn't that for like more than a couple of months before the Smash Brothers DLC came out?
Yeah, and they ruined it completely.
And we immediately knew what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you. I do think there is a problem with game pricing, but it's because I'm increasingly falling into the cheap-ass gamer category where I just don't buy things new that often anymore.
Well, we've got Steam sales, etc. These now.
Exactly, yeah. I have so many games and so many that I haven't played that I'm less fussed about brand new stuff. Unless it really is like just that one game where it's just like, oh my days, I have to play this right now. Like Splatoon 2, basically, which is what hooked me into getting the bloomin' Switch.
The bloomin' Switch is pretty good, man.
The bloomin' Switch, yeah.
Yeah.
In fairness, Splatoon 2 is probably one of my favourite games ever. But, so it worked. It was worth it. But yeah, I'm very rarely in that state, so I don't. In some ways, yeah, sure, raise the price. I'm not going to buy it day one anyway. Screw you guys.
Somebody is, and they'll fund it so that you can get it on the cheap later.
Yep.
Sweet. Cheers, guys.
I'll take that.
Right, let's do the news, seeing as we've been talking about Nintendo.
Sort of talking around the news, yeah. That's the Nintendo Direct. Was this one of those directs where they'd warned us that much in advance that it was coming? Or did they just sort of...
Some in advance.
It was like, hey, we're doing a direct this week.
Well, did they ever do it much more than that, really?
No, I guess not.
Apart from that January one. They gave quite a long warning on that one.
I can't remember what was in the January one. Oh, that was Labo, right? Right? Is that what that was?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Was that even a direct, or was that just the Labo special? I suppose it wasn't like a tease, right? We didn't really know what was coming in it, so they were like, "Hey, look at this weird thing we've done.
We're going to charge 70 quid for cardboard."
Hell yeah! But I think they did actually come back and say, like, a lot of people were saying that they'll just give you free cardboard replacements and stuff like that. I think they turned around on that and said, "Nah, No, we're not doing that.
Yeah, no.
Probably because they get just too many people ordering cardboard. Yeah, I broke it. No, really, I did.
No, really,
No,
give me
honestly,
free cardboard. Nintendo
some
branded cardboard that I can put on eBay.
Hell yeah. All right, I'm going to do... just so we don't spend way too much time on this, because we probably could, but there's a lot of things on this list we'll probably only need to just say, and I will let you guys tell me whether you're interested or not, and to dig in. I think I've got everything on my list, but we'll see. So, starting with the 3DS, they were like, hey, we've got some 3DS stuff coming, which is like, okay, the 3DS is still a thing, that's fine, carry on. WarioWare Gold is a collection of all the best bits of previous handheld WarioWare games.
Cool.
Including stuff from the GBA, Touched, Twisted, I think is in there, and some new stuff.
Sounds good.
I mean, it sort of does.
I like WarioWare. But,
I mean, I do as well, but like every time I've gone back to it since, it really doesn't sort of hold that same...
No, it doesn't.
Like, I know all of it now, I think is the problem.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not surprised or laughing at it, or... So, like, a gold collection doesn't really do it for me, I don't think.
You want, like, all new.
Yeah, 300 all new minigames, please.
You should just play Rhythm Heaven then.
I should play Rhythm Heaven, in fairness. I should play Mega Mix. There's that. There's something about... I didn't get the full name of this, but it sounded like... Who's this Dylan character?
Well,
Has he been in something before?
He had another game, which may or may not have been similar to this one. And also, it was a vague attempt at making a new character by some company, but then it was just like, didn't really work.
I don't know if you can hear that now, but the rain has really kicked up a notch.
It's not that bad.
Oh, we don't have it here. I can hear it, so...
Good luck, noise reduction, on dealing with that. So there's that. There's a Dylan's Breakers or something. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, not sure I was that interested. Re-release of Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. Great. Not a new Mario and Luigi game, unfortunately, just a re-release. Like, was it not on the 3DS? Was it a regular DS game? It's the only way this makes sense, right?
Well, they remade the first one, and that was a GBA game.
Sure.
They basically just got an engine that they're just porting those games to, except for some reason they skipped the second one.
Right.
They skipped Partners in Time. Well, though, it was known that Partners in Time was probably the worst of them, so maybe they also knew that.
Ah, I see.
And they were like, yeah, let's skip that. Let's skip the one that people don't like as much and make the one that people do like more.
But they're sort of including DLC in this with like a Bowser Jr.
As they did with the first one.
Yeah.
And probably is exactly the same as what they did in the first one, because it looks to be exactly the same engine and the exact same style of extra fights that they've included in this thing.
Right. It's a bit lazy then.
Yeah, possibly.
Detective Pikachu continues to look weird. It's got a release date now of March 23rd. So not too far away.
They didn't really show
gameplay.
Yeah, they didn't show what the game actually is.
They showed cutscenes still. And, more about Pikachu's love of coffee.
Detective Pikachu.
It's
like a different character.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that he doesn't know anything about attacks or anything like that. Quick attack. Did I do it? He's basically a subpar Pikachu that just happens to be smart and can talk. Luigi's Mansion 1 remake.
Okay. For Switch?
For 3DS.
Yeah.
It's like theoretically, presumably, you just using the Dark Moon engine, maybe?
Yeah, I guess.
Except it didn't really look like it. Like the way the movement, it looked like the old game, which I guess you'd want it to, but it would have made more sense if they just basically made the original game's map in the Dark Moon engine, but it doesn't exactly look like that.
I still haven't played Dark Moon, so I don't really know if the look is all that engine specific, if you know what I mean. I mean, I thought they did a fairly decent job of making it look like the GameCube version on, I think, hardware that's less powerful than the Cube. That must be less powerful than the Cube, right?
Yeah.
The 3DS. But they, it looked fairly decent. I imagine they Like, do you reckon they're doing the new DS thing and allowing you to use the GameCube controls with the little extra analog nub? Because
I wouldn't have thought so. Well, maybe. Because that would be if they just do, and if it is just in the Dark Moon engine, they'll just use the Dark Moon controls where you just push a button to look up.
sure, but the spin. It was the left-right spin, wasn't it? Or was on right stick on.
Well,
on
it's the
cube.
pulling basically.
Yeah,
that was the only thing that mattered.
Yeah,
that would be how they control that. Will be the one thing that might be different.
Interesting that they're going back to it. I didn't think they would, honestly. It's like Luigi's Mansion feels a little bit like one of those sort of underloved titles. I mean, yeah, it's got a stage in Smash Bros. And they made a sequel.
Surely that was what they did Dark Moon for. It's just like that would be you made the sequel and it was fine.
Yeah. Why
go and remake the original?
I guess because the original.
Yeah, that's true.
The original wasn't really that. Well, maybe it didn't get played all that much. I don't know. It's just like maybe.
Well, their idea wasn't it when the Cube came out was they were going to make some small games that were not so cheaper, I guess, and they made like Pikmin and Luigi's Mansion, and then they kind of gave up. Yeah, but it was never meant to be like a big thing, was it?
I don't think either of those games actually came out cheaper here.
No, so it didn't really. And Pikmin had plenty of content, really.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So there's that. Kirby Star Allies. What is this game? Is it like it doesn't look like a proper Kirby game?
You skipped over from the 3DS to the Switch now.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't put a note here to say when I switched. But yeah. Okay, so this is a Switch game then.
It's the one with the demo that we talked about last week, where I was like, "Oh, the demo for that," and then we went and played it, and it's just a Kirby game. Or I played it.
No, I haven't played it. Is it actually just a Kirby game with the sucking of enemies?
Yeah, it's just a Kirby game.
But isn't that the one with like weird co-op mechanics and?
It's literally the last probably 2 Kirby games have had that exact same 4-player system, except for in this one it's slightly more. You have slightly more control over what partners you have, I guess.
So this isn't the weird combat focused, because there's another one, isn't there? The co-op Kirby game. Is that already out?
Battle Arena one, yeah, that's been out for a while.
Okay. I'm getting a bit lost in these Kirbys.
This is the one that was just called Kirby before.
Oh, is it? This just codename Kirby or
yes. This is the one where they've gone back to the 64 thing where you can combine the powers, except not in the way that 64 did it. Because the way 64 did it, you had to suck up 2 enemies, or you had the ability to, instead of just dropping your power, you'd turn the power into a thing you could throw, and if you threw it at another enemy, then the powers would combine and you could suck that back up in 64. Whereas in this one, Kirby gets one ability, but if your partners have an ability that can combine with it, you can just like push a button and then it combines onto Kirby. So like if you're Sword Kirby and you have the fire guy as your partner, you can just hold up your sword and he'll put fire on it.
Oh, I see. So does that mean your partner would be giving up their power?
No. They just
flame it.
Yeah, they just give you the bonus, I guess, which makes it kind of unnecessary. Because if you like in a situation where you need fire, if you've got the fire guy in your party,
they could just do it.
You just let them do it. You don't have to make the sword fire.
Does it AI them when you're not co-oping? Okay.
And they intelligently react to things that need doing. Like if there's grass and you've got the fire guy, he'll automatically try and set it on fire.
Okay. Does it look alright? Do you think it would be alright?
Yeah, it looks like, it's a Kirby game in that exact way that Kirby games always are, and it looks pretty good. The only trouble I had with it was, I think they've gone too hard on, screen shaking when things happen.
Oh, really?
The screen just jiggles too much, it makes it quite difficult to follow what's going on, especially considering there's already 4 fucking characters flying around apart from all the enemies.
Was Kirby always... Is it a HAL Labs game?
Yeah.
Alright, so... You maybe they learnt too much from Smash. Yeah.
I don't know. But I think at least the last Kirby game was pretty much this exact same thing. It's just a Kirby game.
I still don't think I've ever actually played a Kirby game.
You have Fight Wispy Woods.
Of course
as always.
Yeah.
Played the Game Boy one. Kirby's Dream Land, right?
I never played it. But...
Well, you'll get to play one soon, probably.
Well, yeah, we'll come to that. Okami HD is coming to Switch. Seems like a natural fit.
I'm a bit confused. Like, is it? It's come out though on PS4, has it, or something?
Yeah,
it came out recently.
Yeah, so
right.
Okami HD has already come out on PS4 and Steam.
Right. On Steam. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a PC version, so obviously that's the essential one.
Right.
There has been. This is like the second re-release of Okami, I think, because they did the Wii. There was the PS2 originally, and then no, what was it? It was Wii first, wasn't it? And then they ported it to
PS2. It must have been PS2, right?
I can't remember.
And then
something
Wii
like that.
must have
and
been.
then they did the Wii version, so they could do the motion control canvas drawing, which was cool. And that was the version I played originally. And then I think it got re-released on PS3 with a slight update. And now this one, but they didn't call that the HD version, and now the HD version is on PS4 or whatever. Bit confusing, but yeah. I don't know. I think it sounds like it would be a good fit for the Switch if you don't mind using the Switch as touchscreen to do things.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. To be honest, like moving the brush with a analog stick was not that bad.
No, it's fine. There's no real problem with it. I guess you don't do it as fast, but the game doesn't really put any emphasis on you doing things particularly quickly in the painting mode, so it's all good. Okami's a cool game. Again, it's another one of those games where I'm surprised they never went back to the well to make a sequel. Because it's Capcom, isn't it? Okami, yeah. So it's not outside Capcom's ability to make sequels. They're not like
Konami.
Yeah. So there's that. Sushi Striker came back. Looks the same as it did before. Project Octopath Traveler is now no longer called Project Octopath Traveler, and instead it's just called Octopath Traveler.
Yeah, it really was called Project Octopath Traveler. I guess the demo still had that, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think since then, they've pretty much given up.
Yeah, they dropped the project part of it. And it's finally got a release date of July 13th. And they had another one of those like slightly over-explanatory trailers about here's two new characters you might buy. This guy can buy things.
Well, it seemed like almost kind of a bit of a disappointment of their schools being that bad. It's like the woman who's a merchant can purchase things. It's like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But then the guy who's an apothecary, he can talk to people. And it's like, why? Why is that his skill? Surely his skill should be something to do with potions or some shit.
Yeah, surely they should have had like just an empath character or something. If that was,
I thought like that's kind of
or socialite.
I was going to say that's kind of what the dancer does, but actually the dancer is unnecessarily. You cause people to you basically hire an NPC with the dancer by talking to them, by being a sexy woman, as you do.
Right, courtesan.
Yeah.
And they talked about that there'll be a dual job system, and that combining jobs will be open up possibilities, which,
well, I mean,
the
same standard procedure, I guess.
Yep, Square's wheelhouse.
It's just like it's not. It's basically the Bravely Default system, I suppose, because the two jobs of that system.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Except not quite. I don't know. They didn't, even though they went into this excessive detail. They didn't really show that very well. Like they're like, oh, if the merchant has the dancer skills, then you can do the dancer skills. And they just showed one of the dancer skills, and I was like, that's not actually a combo.
Yeah, I mean that. You're right. Actually, I don't think I pegged that. And perhaps they don't actually have combo states, or that you just gain
the other skills
abilities.
As an option.
Yeah, or certain other abilities. A bit like how...
I mean, technically, that was still how it worked in Bravely Default as well. Like, you just got the other class's skills as an option, but your main class determined, like, your stats and whatever.
Or a bit like how your secondary in Mass Effect just adds a couple of things from that class rather than... Yep, so there's that. It does look cool, though. I still think that game is a really good look. It's an amazing look to it. Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes. So this is the first I think we've actually properly seen of this game. And it's not what I was expecting. I thought No More Heroes was like a character action.
But it was at some point.
Slash, and it seems to have been horrifically simplified into like a top-down hack and slash for single Joy-Con play. and I'm not sure that's what I was after.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Is that the Killer 7 guy? No.
Yeah, I don't know. I think no. Is it Is it Grasshopper? I can't remember.
Yeah,
might be. No, it's the other guy. No, it is Grasshopper. No, I get confused. Grasshopper's done quite a lot, but I think the Killer 7 thing might be a. No, I've got no idea. I think I'm a bit confused between those two, if they're the same or not. Because I think this guy, this Travis Touchdown guy, he also did that game where your gun is called the Boner,
right?
Which might have been Grasshopper as well. I'm not. I don't know. I get lost. But anyway, that game just didn't look as cool as I was hoping. I wanted like Beam Katana character action with weird ass slot machines or whatever that first game was about. That first game was mental. From what I saw, I never actually played it. Dark Souls Remastered is getting an amiibo.
Yes, that was the only important thing about that.
Yep. They're making a Praise the Sun amiibo.
It's like, apparently they know what's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. And that's the only way of doing the Praise the Sun emote in the game is if you tap the amiibo.
That's pretty funny.
That is pretty funny. You got some chutzpah for doing that. Alright. How much do you want to talk about Mario Tennis Aces?
Not as much as they did.
What? True.
But that's very easy because when Nintendo goes into excessive detail, they really go into excessive detail.
Yeah, they really did go into excessive detail. But
what's the kind of feeling?
I don't know how I feel about it. So they're definitely adding a lot of mechanics to it, but none of them are quite so random and haphazard as what they've tried in the past. It does feel like they're actually trying this time to come up with mechanics that are somewhat skill related. So, long story short, it's about meter management now, and that your characters have meters, and certain actions will make them go up, and certain actions will make them go down. And so you now have special shots. You can target a shot to a specific point on the court using some meter, which is called a zone shot. And you now have a special defensive mood called the zone speed, which slows down time for you to get across the shots. But that burns meter while you're using it. There's now also concepts such as racket damage, about if you don't correctly time a return to a powerful shot, your racket will get damaged. And they implied that if you lost your racket, that's it. That's game over. But they didn't really say whether it was end of game or whether it was like end of match.
Well, they also kind of vaguely implied that you probably have more than one racket, but they were even specific. It's like, if it's your last racket, they said at some point, and I'm like, okay, so how many do you have?
Yeah, so like, and
so they were like, okay, we made the best game ever last year, and what's the feature that people like the most about it? Oh, weapon damage.
Yeah, weapon durability, of course. Yeah,
so that in our tennis game.
Yeah, so they did imply that this seemed like an intentional thing. It's like, do you go for the point for the game, or do you go for racket damage in order to like win the match by other means, implying that maybe that's like a comeback mechanic, right? So say you're like losing badly at the game, but you had the opportunity of doing racket damage, like you could just win by damage as opposed to by points.
That's horrible.
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. I don't know how I feel about it. The only thing I can really, and there's this thing called there's trick shots as well. It sounds like you could like specifically spend more time to play a fancy shot to build more meter, something about specials once you've got full meter.
You just get an uber shot, of course.
Yeah,
there's always going to be one of those. The trick shots seems like they were trying to do like a fighting games, like when fighting games do like close or far attack versions of a move. That always seems like what the trick attack is. Like you have to be spaced a certain distance away from where the ball's going to be.
Oh, right.
And then trigger it before the ball gets there.
So if you think you can judge the distance perfectly.
Because they say that the trick shot is how you build your meter faster.
Yeah.
Which implies that it's a skill-based thing they want you to do, where it's like you have to... Because they show Wario where it's like he does it too late and he misses the ball.
And then they had Peach doing a fancy spin to actually hit the thing.
Yeah. It's like that. to me that says that it's like it does require you to be in like a certain position and do a certain move.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Peach definitely does two different ones as well. Because she does like a spin and a cartwheel. So, because we only ever see Mario do the ridiculous flippy jump, and you only ever see Wario do his slidey dive. But then when they show Peach, she does two different ones, which is interesting as well. I'm not sure whether is it just different animations, or is that actually a different like directional version of that move that you have to trigger? Who knows?
So all of this sort of, in my mind, adds up to this is a very interesting mechanical shift for them, and it's perhaps something that they long overdue, right? Like,
well, to actually make a tennis game which has more mechanics and are actually thought about rather than just throwing in special moves
in a way that actually seems to like shake up the tennis world, I suppose, or what a tennis game could be. That like they've put some effort in for once, which is more than you can say for that Wii U version where there was zero effort. It's interesting, but I'm not 100% convinced it will be good because of Mario Tennis's history.
Screw that, you just turn it off anyway. Woo,
yep.
Simple mode.
They did straight up just say, we've put a basic mode in that just turns all of this new stuff off so you can play tennis.
Oh, cool.
Like turning off power moves in the GameCube version. It's like
exactly. But turning off power moves in the GameCube version didn't make that game as good as Mario 64.
No, it didn't solve it because the feel was not right.
Yeah, and that is one other thing that there was slight hints that maybe they had slightly closer to the feel of 64, maybe. I mean, as soon as they showed Boo doing a crazy curling slice, and he was clearly drifting, and you can see like the charging when people start charging, you can see like the glowing around the racket as they slow down and start to position.
Yeah,
it's like that's looking like the right idea.
All good signs. Yeah.
Okay, so sort of cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. They did give it a release date as well. I think it said June 22nd.
Oh, not long.
So not too long. And they're also going to do well, they called it the pre-launch tournament, which so effectively there's going to be like a beta period.
Yeah. But it's also 1-on-1. Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Doubles is always the way to go.
Doubles is the key to that game. But yeah. But at least we'll get. I guess it'll be the opportunity to get a feel for what these mechanics mean.
Yeah. And how well it works online, also.
Sure.
So let's see what their netcode is like.
That's clearly what the point is, right? Like, they're masking it in a tournament, but it's clearly like it's a test punch. Mario Tennis Aces. Like, could be interesting. It's the first time I could honestly say that about a tennis game in a very long time. Probably ever since Mario Tennis. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is being re-released on the Switch and the 3DS.
Okay, I mean, just keep bringing those good Wii U games over, because no one bought them the first time, so...
Exactly, can't really complain. Undertale is unsurprisingly coming to the Switch. I'm sort of surprised that got a spot, to be honest, but, if Dylan can get a spot, then I guess Undertale deserves one. Slightly weirdly, the Crash Bandicoot remake trilogy is being released on Switch on July 10th.
The funny thing about that was I saw a comment on YouTube where someone was like, I never thought this was going out on Switch, but I'm waiting for the PC version. And then literally the next day, the PC version was announced.
Oh, was it? I didn't actually hear that.
So basically, Activision is just putting out wherever the fuck they can.
Yeah.
Because they just want money.
I mean, it's
like, we've got this Crash Bandicoot license that we're clearly not going to make a new game with. Let's just release the other ones.
Well, I don't know. There are rumours that they are making a new Crash Bandicoot game right now. Like, classic style, but new stuff.
There's no way that's going to
happen. Yeah.
Activision don't make games of that nature.
Oh, no. Sorry, that's a lie, wasn't it? It was Spyro they were talking about. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird just simply because of the fact of that, Crash has kind of been a PlayStation icon, right? And this is the first time he's got out of that. Other than the fact they did release some Crash games on GBA back in the day. But then a lot of weird stuff came out on GBA back in the day. Like, there's a Banjo-Kazooie game on GBA.
That's not that weird.
Microsoft releasing on Nintendo. It was Microsoft during that release, yeah. because it was around the time of Nuts and Bolts. Anyway,
well, they may have already been making that before they got acquired by Microsoft at that
probably,
point.
probably, yeah. And also, I guess Crash. No, was it Banjo did appear in a Sega game as well because they were in the the first version of Sonic All Stars Racing.
Yeah, but
Xbox.
that was the.
But at least that's on Xbox, right?
Oh, and also that was the moment when Sega became the cameo factory.
I guess, yeah.
They became the Valve of consoles for cameos.
The Valve of the consoles. Other things coming. Little Nightmares is going to come to come to Switch. No real surprise. South Park is going to come to the Switch. Possibly a surprise if you consider the adult nature of that game. But that's probably actually quite a good fit for the Switch, right?
Well, the only thing that's surprising is they didn't do the first one as well.
Sure.
Because it's just the second one.
Yeah, well, the second one is quite different, but yeah, you're right. It is possibly a bit weird that they didn't think to do the first one as well. Got to sell that new game. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which I assume was a Wii U and 3DS version before. I didn't think they did a Switch one, so they're doing a Switch one. May 18th. ARMS is having a tournament, and they're opening a new Test Punch period on March 31st. So
I'm not sure they're really allowed to call it a test punch after launch.
No,
that's not what that means.
They're not really testing anything. Yeah, it's just it's a free weekend.
It's a demo.
Yeah,
it's a time limited demo.
And now we get to the real meat for me. Like, these last 2 points. Oh, boy. Splatoon 2 is getting a big old update, which at first sounded real dry, because they're just like, here's version 3, we're going to have 100 new bits of gear, and we've got 3 new maps are coming, 2 of which I think are from Splatoon 1.
Yep.
But they're good maps, so I don't care too much.
But the Salmon Run map, grr.
Yeah, that's disappointing. For still, Salmon Run doesn't get enough love. Not enough updates, not enough stuff being added to that for sure. But that trailer for the Octo expansion. That's a real good trailer.
Do you really care about that? Because it's single player.
I don't know. The single player is my least favourite part of Splatoon. But, that's a hell of a trailer. I want to play that. I want to play it right now.
Well, you better finish the regular single player.
I have finished the regular single player, just not with every weapon. No. And I'm never going to do that. If it means that music that they played during it is coming to the game, or more Octo-style music, and Octolings are now going to be like playable characters in the main game as well. It's not just Inklings. The Inklings and Octolings are now friends or something.
Except they're not I'm not convinced they actually are Octolings for a start.
Yeah, there's something odd about them.
They very specifically say in the voiceover she looks like an Octoling. It's sort of like, okay, so that's not actually...
There's some kind of hybrid, and then I assume it's going to go...
some kind of genetic engineering experiment going on in this subway.
Yeah, it looks a little bit Dead or Alive for a second. There's clearly going to be some sort of... perhaps an explanation for why Marina is there.
Well... I mean, right. Because that's why she clearly is an Octoling, because the Octolings you fight in the normal campaign look like her, whereas this new one does not. Looks like an Inkling with weird hair.
Well, no, she does look like Marina, because the only real difference between the Octolings is they have suckers on their hair parts, and they don't have the joined up blackness on their eyes. Those are the only 2 real differences. But anyway, boy, it's like 80 new levels, I think they said, or 80 sort of test environments. So whether those are like big full-on single-player levels, or whether they're small little challenges, and there's this subway presentation that seems like it would be cool, and new story content, and they're adding Callie to the other single-player to do something that's not really explained, perhaps to just be there.
I don't think that wasn't part of the expansion day, so that's just...
No, that's just
part of the update.
That's just coming. And they did straight up say that this expansion is going to be $20, which pushes us more to that sort of upper end of Nintendo DLC. But I'm so in. I love the aesthetic of this way too much. Even if I'm slightly skeptical about the single player side of this, it's like, oh, I love this so much. Seriously, though, that trailer music.
You better hope that they actually make new level music and don't just reuse the same level music again.
Yeah,
which they might well do.
I would have been. Well, they've done music updates already. A music update already. There's nothing to say they wouldn't be more. Oh gosh. And then the final number. Not a lot to talk about, but as you've almost certainly heard by now, Smash Brothers is coming.
But we still don't know whether it's a remake or a new game.
I am in the camp that it will be mostly a remake, or
really?
Not. Yeah, I think it will be mostly the Wii U version, but just because they haven't had as much time as they normally
or have they though? That's the question.
Well, it's been like 3 years, I suppose, but
yes, we don't actually know how long they've been working on this.
There's also the other factor that, like, Sakurai, like the lead, after the Wii U version, he pretty much said, "I'm not doing this again," and we haven't seen him. So there's no real. We don't know if Sakurai's actually working.
Well, I don't know if he necessarily meant that he's not ever going to make another Smash Bros. I think maybe he was referring to the fact that he got kind of surprised by having to make another Smash Bros. Suddenly. When Nintendo kind of dropped that on him at the E3, went like, "And new Smash Bros." He's like, "What? I wasn't ready for that."
Maybe, but
also,
I would just given Nintendo's current push of like mostly recycled content from the Wii U, I think maybe it's a half, like Splatoon 2, maybe it's more of a half step, right? And then like it'll be mostly the same. Like perhaps mechanically it'll be the same. Perhaps we'll get all the guest characters thrown in, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, maybe.
All of the guest characters.
Licensing troubles aside.
Like a lot of people, some people were definitely saying like it would be obvious even if it's technically a new game, it will probably still be on the same engine.
Yeah,
because there's no reason to fuck around with that.
Yeah.
You don't need to rebuild the whole game. You're just basically putting new stuff into the engine that already exists.
But then it's like if you're treating it in that way, it's like, okay, building a stage probably isn't the most complicated part of that game, but building the characters. Or how much refinement they're going to put into the character model and any of that is like, that's where the work potentially is, right?
I mean, the only one thing that makes it seem marginally more likely to be a more new game, if not a totally new game, but like, is that it looks like in the brief second that you see it, looks like Breath of the Wild Link, and that would have to be a complete rebuild of that character because all the abilities would be different.
Maybe, yeah.
Because
maybe it'd be a third Link. You've got like.
It could just be a third Link, but because the bombs are completely different. Because in regular Link, they're a timed fuse. As soon as you pull them out, the fuse starts burning. Whereas in the Breath of the Wild Link, it'd be triggered.
Well, they don't always follow the pattern completely, do they? Like with move sets, it's like I think there's every possibility it could just be a reskin.
But then
it'd be nice if it wasn't.
What about all his other shit that you could totally. I mean, even if.
If the one thing they need to put in with like Breath of the Wild Link, if it is a new character, and like they need to come up with a name that's snappier.
Breath of the Wild Link will be what it's called.
Or would it just be Wild Link?
Yeah, Wild Link, like Toon Link,
or Breathing Link. They'll Blue Link, Braided Link. There might be they'd have to somehow get weapon durability in there somewhere.
Well, basically,
right? Just like you've got the Master Sword, but you can't use it all.
Well, they're going to make. Clearly, they should just make this new Link not a reskin of the regular Link. They should make it a reskin of Robin because he already has weapon durability with his sword that goes away after a while.
Sort of, yeah.
It's basically the same.
Yeah. The glider would be ridiculous.
Well, that's just his replacement to up B. No, you don't do the spin attack any longer. You just have the Rivali's Gale.
Yeah, of course. That would be cool.
I mean, that is basically just a reskin.
Yeah.
It could do exactly the same damage profile even as the spin attack.
Maybe. You'd have to change the hits and how the character then bounces around after each hit.
I don't know if you would, because some of the up Bs that have like Peach's Parasol and its weird multi-hit
but that's sort of like straight. Lynx is going side to side and like causes a bit of horizontal action, and like Rivali's would be more vertical, and they'd be and probably not as wide because he's not spinning a sword around. There's changes.
What else? Cryonis. That would be funny.
Oh yeah, just put a random pillar in the middle of it. That could be his down. That could be his down A. Pillars. His down smash. Just although you don't really use the ice for like damage in the game, but like it just came out of the ground and threw someone in the air.
Maybe.
Or his up A, something like that. Anyway, new Smash is coming. Most importantly, it's coming this year.
Maybe.
So they've said. Be this year. Yeah.
December.
I mean, they need something big, and that's a big one, isn't it? Even if it is.
It's a biggie, yeah.
I mean, if it's really a new game, like even on the same engine, that is like a big release, right? Which is what they need.
People were still claiming that, and I don't know where they get this idea from, but people were still claiming that the Pokemon game's supposed to come out this year. And I'm like, no. I'm not sure anyone's ever said that. Where are you getting this idea from?
No, Pokemon would have a way. The new Pokemon would have a way bigger wind up. That wouldn't be a shadow drop or like.
They've still got E3.
I guess, but like the wind up to Pokemon games is massive. Normally, like we normally know about them fairly early.
Well, maybe they want it to be marginally more surprising this time because it's going to be different.
Well, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, I subscribe to that. I quite like the late reveal to release, but that's generally not how Pokemon have done it.
Because what else are they going to do at E3? What's the big Nintendo reveals at E3? Not that E3 matters to them as much anymore, does it? They've already
just
done
do another
Smash
direct,
Brothers.
Don't they?
Yeah.
They've already revealed Smash Brothers, and they haven't talked about the Pokemon.
Well, we see Smash Brothers, I guess, and that might be enough.
I don't think you even see Smash Brothers. I think at
E3. At E3? Yeah, we have to see it at E3.
No, I think at E3 you're just going to get another character reveal trailer like they do. Because they never actually show Smash Brothers just like, here's Smash Brothers. They show a little bit of Smash Brothers in the character reveal trailers.
Yeah.
Which isn't really the same as showing the game, but it kind of is.
I don't know why. I've got a hunch they'll go a different direction with how they talk about Smash this time.
I don't think they. Because the trouble is, you don't just imagine the ridiculous amount of detail that they went into Mario Races only for Smash Bros. It would be basically like the tutorial video, where it's like, here's how you do a Smash, and here's how you do the B moves and all this stuff. And they're not going to do that for Smash Bros. Because they know that people who want Smash Bros. Already know everything about Smash Bros. That's why the character reveals are the main way they showed Smash Bros. Because that's the thing that's new and interesting in the new version of Smash Bros.
Well, and arguably the control is the least important part, though, so I don't need to show that even to casuals. It's like, do you really need to know how to control the game? They didn't talk about that in Aces, how you actually control the game. They talked about how it's mechanical stuff. It's like, you don't know what button we push to do zone shots. It's
well, it's a 2-button system. That's fairly obvious.
Well, there'll be more buttons. There'll be triggers.
But yeah, I don't think they'll actually go into. I don't think they'll go into detail on Smash Bros. It will still be the same that they've always done with that, unless it really is dramatically different in some way. Like if they bring back story mode, maybe then we can go into that.
Oh damn! If Subspace Emissary is back, damn! And that hadn't even crossed my mind. I'd be so happy if that's back. It's a stupid mode you play once, but it's so good.
And also, they also don't need to go into it if they're going to maybe bring back all the shitty modes they made for the last game. Both versions, 3DS and Wii U.
Yeah, let's not do Smash Tour again. That didn't work. It's called Smash. Yeah, it was Smash Tour. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever the board game was.
Yeah,
that didn't really work. Still got bloody things to unlock thanks to Smash Tour.
But I think either of those, like either Smash Brothers or the Pokemon game, if they're not unusually different, it doesn't seem like a thing they're going to spend a long time on. No. Ideally, the Pokemon game will be at least unusually different enough, maybe, to have that level of attention.
Again, I'm not convinced Pokemon will be different. I think it will just have that fidelity bump, like a similar. You're like those last three, the 3DS run where they went all 3D and stuff. It's like that's a fidelity bump, but it's effectively the same game underneath, and I think we'll just see that.
Yeah, probably.
And also, they've got to spend. They really have to spend some time at E3 talking about the online service.
They do.
Because it's kind of coming rapidly.
Yeah. I mean, if to go back to the Splatoon thing, that is the one thing that the DLC perhaps rubs me the wrong way, that they're going $20 for something, for a game we're going to have to pay $20 a year to play soon.
But the DLC is offline.
But the DLC is offline, yeah. And it'll be available to all, whether you have the Nintendo Online Pass account.
Presumably, anyway. Unless for some reason they do something really dumb, like linking the Nintendo Store to your online account.
I don't know. Can you boot up Splatoon 2 without creating tying a Nintendo account to your
I don't remember.
No. Or I guess we would have had accounts by the time we booted it up.
Well, I mean, that was our one problem with how we had to transfer your account off my Switch and everything.
Sure.
But we weren't sure whether that was linking the actual account or whether it was just like the me/saves.
Yeah. A little uncertain. Still, what was starting out as because I was watching this on YouTube live, and the chat was obviously running through it, and it's like seeing it turn when the Splatoon 2 trailer and then the Smash Brothers trailer dropped was quite fun, because up to that point everyone was going, "This is really disappointing. Where's Smash? Show me Smash."
Everyone knew it was coming though. It was like.
But then the moment it dropped, it's like chat was so like, "Oh my god, so good!" It's like, but up to that point, everyone thought the direct was kind of lame, and then those two things landed, and they were like, "Oh!"
I think people would have been foolish to not expect that. The number of times I saw,
I'll be honest, I thought Smash was still some time away. I didn't think it was going to be this year.
Well, I mean, they could have still teased it at this point and it did next year.
Maybe. Well, yeah. Well, Smash is another one of those games that has traditionally had an incredibly long run-up to its release.
Yeah.
Like, over a year. Well over a year. Like, maybe 2 years in Wii U's case. Wii U's run-up was incredibly long.
It's because they had to schedule time for all those characters. We're not getting as many characters this time. They haven't got as many months to do character reveals continuously for.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They'll release it as like a quite slim package and it'll just get bigger over time, like Splatoon.
No, I don't think that's going to happen either. Because they've already gone into the DLC route and everything, yeah. We'll be lucky if we even get the DLC characters in this version, if it is a repackaging.
I think it would be cheeky if they did that.
I mean, assuming they still have the licenses.
Assuming they still have the licenses, yeah. So that's the Ninty Direct.
Oh yeah, Smash Brothers, baby.
Fun times.
When are they going to release a GameCube adapter for Switch? Apart from apparently the Wii U one actually will work.
Yeah, in theory, I haven't tried it, but in theory, the one I have will just work.
Assuming the one you have will work at all because of its fucked upness.
Well, I think 2 of the sockets are boned on it. Yeah, but those first 2 sockets should be fine. Also, I'm not sure I would mind playing Smash on the Pro Controller.
On the Pro Controller,
yeah.
It's pretty good.
The Joy-Cons might suck, but the Pro Controller's fine. Because I played a lot of the Wii U version on that Pro Controller and on the gamepad before I managed to get hold of one of the GameCube things, and I thought it was fine. It's like, it's better on a GameCube controller, admittedly.
Well, the big problem with the Wii U one was like the squishiness of the buttons on the Wii U. Everything was too squidgy and like it didn't feel responsive enough for a fighting game, even a weird Nintendo fighting game. I
mean, that Pro Controller's a lot better than the buttons on the actual gamepad itself. I mean the Wii U Pro Controllers. The Wii U Pro Controller's pretty good.
But the Switch one's even better.
The Switch one's even better. Although, I didn't realise this because I've never actually used it. Apparently that D-pad's not all that on the Switch Pro Controller. I
haven't used it much for actual...
No, I don't think I've ever used it other than to say booyah in Splatoon. But
it seems fine, but I haven't used it, so...
Yeah, I've heard some stuff about people trying to play Celeste on the Switch with the D-pad and like diagonals being basically somewhat impossible to actually, or unreliable, shall we say?
Interesting.
Yeah. What else is going on in the news?
COD Blops.
COD Blops 4 is a thing.
That's not news at all.
No, not really.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thing.
I mean, I liked the first two a great deal. And I haven't played 3, admittedly, and some people that I follow on the internet are very big on Blops 3. I never played it simply because it didn't look all that leading into it. It looked like all of the interesting stuff that they'd done in the previous game seemed to have gone away in favour of co-op, which is not what I come to a COD campaign for, really. So I don't know. Colour me skeptical. And Blops, I played the Blops 3 beta, and I didn't like its take on the multiplayer. You know, because they went big on the Titanfall style movement. That was when they had wall running and things like that, and did that, and I didn't get on with it all that well. It was okay, just it wasn't Titanfall, nor was it COD, and I wasn't looking for that. So I don't know I don't know what they'll do with this one. Presumably future tech again, but are they going all out craziness, or are they going to dial it back in some way? Who knows? Treyarch have been the most experimental studio of the lot, so let's hope they go weird.
Let's see. I mean, we just had a sort of conservative one in the World War II one, so I would say, arguably, so maybe it's time to go a little nuts again.
Let's go nuts.
Maybe not hire Kevin Spacey, though.
Well, that wasn't Treyarch, in fairness.
Yeah,
that was Sledgehammer. But yeah.
Anyway.
Y'all go make me lose my mind.
Up in here.
I don't know why that's all that came into my head.
Yes, we're not up to Call of Duty 10 yet.
No.
I mean, or are we?
Or what if it
I
was?
guess we kind of are.
Or what if it was COD X? Yeah, we must be right now, right? This must be. How many COD games have there been?
A lot.
Yeah.
Too many.
Yeah, we must be well over 10 now. Thinking about it.
Yeah. They're just waiting for 25 so they can be like Madden. Madden 25! Where suddenly it's not the year any longer.
Yeah. COD 25. Well, I never. What do you reckon they would do that? Just like Call of Duty 2017? Or the release one for last year?
I'm trying to think of why. Was it literally just because it was 25 that they did Madden 25? There was no other actual significance to 25.
No, I think you're right.
Unreal
I think it was like 25 years of Madden. Yeah.
It was 25 Maddens.
Was it 2003? And then 2004?
2004. Yeah.
The good one.
The good one. 2004 was the finished game.
Yeah, 2003 was the pre-release, which was perfectly good, but
2003 was exactly the same as 2004, just with a lot less content.
Yeah.
The amount of content in 2003 was actually quite disappointing for that time period, because the original UT had so much in it.
Yeah.
That when 2003 came out, I remember playing it going, is this it? And it's like, by modern standards, it's not actually that bad a content. Like
no, not by modern standards. But then 2004 had like freaking vehicles and all
like
kinds
3
of
times
shit.
as much. Yeah.
Did 2003 had that level where you were, fighting through the whatever the things going through the desert or whatever, right? With the giant. Was that in?
No, that was 2004 because they didn't.
Okay.
2003 didn't have assault mode.
Assault mode. That's right. Okay, so 2004 had that, and it had the like giant truck mission or whatever, right? And all of that stuff.
Oh yeah, it had the giant. Was it the Behemoth or something? The giant artillery tank you had to guide through the way, and then it had that one about just getting a truck through the level, and it was a real complex level, and there was the bit of the crane, and you had to bring the car across on the crane. And
that game was freaking crazy, man.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Love 2004. Yeah, we had way too much fun with that thing. To the point where, like, because their big thing was like, it was not the assault mode was kind of like almost not talked about. Their big thing was like I guess their battlefield mode, right? Their node-based conquest thing, and they pushed that really heavily.
Yeah.
But actually, assault for me was the star of the show. They're like, assault was so much fun, even if that space one is a bit jank. But
oh yeah. Man, some games were better than that they are these days.
Yeah.
To be honest.
If you think how much was in that thing and how ambitious that thing was and how successful most of it was.
Yeah.
And then that the vehicle team for that went on to make Rocket League. Hi-oh!
Oh, really? Is that it?
Yeah. Psyonix had were the support team for 2004 doing the vehicle stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You can find out more about that in Denny O'Dwyer's No Clip documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, is that enough news?
Do we want to talk quickly about the Oculus thing? That they forgot to upgrade a security certificate, so everyone's Oculus stopped working?
Well, yeah, that's hilarious, but it's not really that interesting. I mean, it's not really
anything to talk about. It's just real stupid.
They just didn't renew the certificate. Oh, idiots.
Division 2 got announced. Unsurprisingly, game announcements.
Right.
Woo.
Are they gonna? Is it gonna be New York again, or
no one knows? All they've done is put the logo out.
Did that thing make money?
I assume it must have done. Yeah.
Weird.
There's a copy of it behind my head for some reason. One thing of Death Punch 2 you mentioned. Zach and I are quite fans of that first one. So God knows what they're going to do with the second. And there's a new Overwatch character who is apparently a weird mix of Torbjorn and Shield guy, Reinhardt. So, like, turret shielding?
Hopefully not.
Yeah. She sounds kind of interesting. A sort of weird halfway house support character. And I finally got my hands on playing their new, Moira was the last healer they added to the game. And she's, because she seems to be being used all the time now by people, and it took me a while to get to grips with her, but I can understand why. She's quite powerful.
Well, it's because they nerfed Mercy to shit,
yeah,
so everyone had to move on.
Playing as Mercy is so sad. I cannot play Mercy anymore. Really, she's just not. She doesn't feel viable anymore. It's a real bummer. But anyway, that's news.
Right, it's time for that classic section that we do every week, or every other 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's called What You've Been Playing.
Classico Secchino.
Let's start with you, Rob, actually.
All right. Let's tear Recore apart. I finished that thing. And it remains an incredibly interesting experience that I cannot recommend anyone ever play.
Or at least not up to the end. It seemed okay at the start when you.
It seemed okay up until I got to the tower. Now, from previous knowledge of what people complained about that game, of what people's problems were with the end thing, it does seem like the tower's requirements have been either stripped or dialed back quite a lot. Because I remember one of the early complaints was it's like there are multiple floors in this tower, and to access each one you need a certain amount of, effectively the game's equivalent of moons or shrines or whatever, like these prismatic cores, and that you needed a certain number of those to access each floor. So you'd go up to one, finish the floor, only to come across another gate that had a high requirement, and then you'd have to go back into the world and do side quests and yada yada yada. I got to the tower with enough cores to open the door at the bottom, and there was no other doors. So I think they changed that in the definitive edition. So once you have access to the tower, you can climb it if you want. I had more than enough to satisfy the requirement. So yay, that whole late game grind thing, not a problem for me. However, once you get into the tower, you will discover the buggiest area in the game.
Oh no.
It crashed multiple times. I had multiple sequence breaks. I had the way where things just wouldn't progress, and I was stuck and had to basically reload the floor and try it again. I had multiple glitches that weren't game breaking, but would actually just stop the game for about 30 seconds. Like the game would just stop, but sound would carry on. So if I was like being hurt by fire or something at the time, I'd have an awkward sounding loop of Jewel getting hurt. Go, ooh, ah, oh, like while the game's doing nothing else. Great. And then it would all start moving again. Yeah, that thing really started to fall apart when you get there, which is kind of a bummer because it also has some of the more it's also the part of the game where some of the nuance of the combat system started to become not only apparent but necessary to get through some of its challenges. And on that side of the game, they've got some really interesting ideas. Some of this does feel like it's been thought through. In that there's on floor 2 and specifically, there are a couple of insanely hard and long combat rooms. Basically, we just put in an environment where there's, you're walled off on all sides, and you've just got to fight a load of enemies for a while. But what it did is it threw some wrinkles in. Like the arena would suddenly become irradiated, so you'd be losing health constantly whilst battling these things, putting a time limit on it. But this was the point where I realized, if I manage to extract a core during the fight, I get a chunk of health back. So that added a strategic element to it, and being like, okay, I've got to deal with these enemies in such a way that I can extract their cores in order to keep my health up. Interesting wrinkle. But the fight was also incredibly hard that I had to actually sort of start learning how to use my robot buddy effectively in order to pull the what do you call it? What was that? Kiting, effectively. Use my robot my robot friend to kite enemies to them rather than deal with me. Because one of the game's biggest combat problems is that if too many enemies get on you at once, they can quite easily stun lock you in just sequences of attacks. Like you'll get hit by someone's lethal fire spreading along the floor, and that causes you to stumble a bit, so you're stun locked. During that time period, something else can hit you, causing your stun animation to repeat again. Oh, no. And then another wave of fire could come, and you can get stuck and just die.
Lame.
And that is an enormous annoyance in these incredibly long challenges where if you just get stuck, you're screwed, and you have to do the whole fight again. However, you can sort of mitigate some of that from. I mean, if you're in that situation, you're screwed. But if you can try and stop it from occurring in the first place by if I swap my robot buddies on a particular enemy while I'm looking at a particular enemy, my new robot friend will spawn out of the sky onto that enemy, therefore drawing his attention onto the guy right in front of him. And then there's a cooldown before you can do it again to draw other people. Or I could, the guy I'm looking at, I could get my robot guy to launch his lethal at it to draw attention to him. And so then that became an interesting game of okay, I need the heat off me and I need to keep this guy alive, but I also need to be swapping out my guys frequently enough so they don't get damaged too much. So I lose them for a while, which would be a problem. And that stuff kind of came together. I found that really interesting. And it's I was forced to learn that stuff. Otherwise, I wasn't going to get through this incredibly hard fight. But I'm kind of glad it was incredibly hard, because without it, I wouldn't have learned all this neat stuff that the game actually was trying to do. Up until this point, and we're talking 15 hours of gameplay, I hadn't really understood why I would want to swap my robot friend all that often, or why I would need to use so many lethal attacks as their specials, effectively, that are offered to me. I didn't quite understand it. I was never put in a scenario where I felt like I needed to engage with all of that stuff. And suddenly here I am engaging with that stuff and having to, and it makes sense. So, to conclude,
yeah,
clever ideas, very underbaked.
Damn it! Come on, guys.
It's like someone in Bake Off who has a really clever flavor combination,
Concept,
but the cake is uncooked. Soggy bottom.
Step one is
that's
to
what I
bake
should
it.
There we go. That's what we should call this Recore review. Just soggy bottom. I really found myself wanting them to have. Oh, I have to talk about the tone as well. Yeah, that you're on the money. That story goes nowhere. It's a real disappointment. Like there's like they set themselves up for some really interesting things that the game never explores. It's just like, hey, my dad did something, and that's pretty much all you know. At the end of the game, is my dad did something. They're probably all dead, but he did something, so they're sort of not dead. I don't know. The end. kind of sucks, but like tonally, I wish that game had like played it very differently, because it's like the story tries to be very serious, the music is all very serious, and to Gnome's ear had a little bit of some John Williams Star Wars elements in there. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, I can sort of see where you're coming from, but then you've got the incredibly goofy nature of the robots and how they animate. And how they interact with the world. Like you get a flying robot that literally says "woohoo" when you spawn it into the world. They sort of like cartoon like quick animations, and they get scared of things, and I kind of wish like the rest of the tone of the game, like both musically and from the human characters, just wasn't so serious all the damn time. This game doesn't want to be taken seriously, yet there's a sort of disconnect in the aesthetic. And it's like that's a shame. Do you remember those trailers I quite liked, like early in the day, where they had some cool, I don't even know what you'd call it. It was like, it wasn't quite dubstep, but it was just sort of like some funky electronic beats and stuff like that, quite high process. If they had stuck with that aesthetic, I think this would have felt like a more fun, enjoyable game, even with all its problems and stuff like that. Like that oppressive nature of like just two chords running through the incredibly long loading screens all the time, like the just like, and I'm sat there for like 30 seconds just listening to that, and then or way longer than that, and in most cases like a good couple minutes in some loading screens, and it's just like, come on, you could have made this way more entertaining, a bit more upbeat, and I think you'd have found your tone.
Just moderate your tone slightly.
Yeah. So as I say, I'm glad I played for it. I honestly am, because like when I had that revelation on floor 2 of the E-Tower, and it's just like, oh, I can see how this comes together. That was a thing. It's like suddenly the game made a bit more sense of what they were trying to achieve, but they don't. Avoid.
In conclusion, interesting.
But avoid.
Thumbs
down.
Thumbs down into that soggy bottom.
Who's in that ad for that? Is it an online casino or something where that guy just has to have his fingers in all the pies?
No, I don't watch TV, but now I wish I did.
Literal metaphors.
Yeah, it is. It's just a guy in like what looks like a trailer, just getting a pie out and just putting his finger in it and going, ooh. And then he tries different pies, and each time he has a different reaction until obviously at the end he's just got a whole table full of pies that he just goes, like, plays a chord of pie. It's a pretty cool ad. Shame it's for an online casino. So yeah, what else have I been playing? I have a SNES Mini Classic now.
Ooh.
So that's a cool little thing. It's looks like an old SNES. Is quite small. Fits in the palm of my hand.
How's the controller cable length?
Very short. I can't sit in my couch and play that thing.
That's annoying.
I have to wheel my wheelie chair over there and play right up close, which in its own weird way has a nostalgia factor. It's like I'm having to sit close to the telly to do this.
That's weird.
But yeah, that thing needs longer cables, for sure. Several extra feet. but it's a cool little thing. It's a well-made little device. Like the menus are nice and slick and easy to get around. It's got save states, and the controller feels. I don't think it's made of the same sort of plastic as it once was. It feels a little bit more matte than the sort of smoothness I remember from the original SNES controllers. But then I didn't play all that SNES back in the day. So it's like this is, in a way, this is like my window to a past I didn't have.
Yeah, the alternative dimension where you're a Nintendo, not Sega person.
So there's like pretty much all of the games on this thing I've never really sunk any real time into. And that includes, big classics. Like I've never spent that much time with Super Mario World. I've never spent any time with Super Metroid, which Zach was very excited I should play.
Well, because he kept saying you should play it. And there was a time when we considered whether we were going to do it on video or something.
I'm still up for that, in fairness. Like we could go through Super Metroid.
Even slightly more legitimate.
Well, yes. Because in fairness, we never owned a SNES or any of the games on it. So it's, now we technically do.
I played Super Mario World on the Game Boy Advance. That was pretty good.
Oh, right.
Pretty good. It was amazing.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
That game is way harder than I expected. Like I'm up to the Forest of Illusion now on that, and so I'm having to. Yeah, I'm at the point where I need to find some different exits. I'm stuck, and try and figure out how to get out of there. And I know that there's a few levels where I haven't found their secret exits on the way, but that one in particular, I haven't located what I need to do. But the plus side is the SNES allows me to save scum it. So, I imagine that GBA version was a little bit easier. I don't know how the save system actually works because I've never run out of lives, but I imagine you can just go back to the map at some point or go back to a point some distance behind because it doesn't save after every level. Like it saves at specific points. It seems like. But yeah, you get full save state control on this thing so you can scum it, which I'm loving.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's cool. I lost a few too many lives. I want to try that again. Or it was better going into this level with a Yoshi. Let me try that again. See if I can find the secret exit. So this lets you do all that, and I'm totally okay with that. I want to enjoy what people loved about these games more than I want to be challenged by them. I think at the moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? I want to enjoy them for what they are, and I am enjoying Super Mario World. I think it's weird because in many ways it's actually quite a trolly game. There are things moles that will pop out of the floor if you're just running along, and it's like, oh god damn it!
Yeah,
I didn't know that was there, and it's just killed me. And it's mean in a way that I didn't really expect.
Trolley is right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I can see where Mario Maker is more of a where some of its more dastardly nature actually comes from now, because this game is quite dastardly. It's surprising. I didn't think Nintendo, even old Nintendo, I didn't really think it was in them to make something. I mean,
obviously
like
Mario Brothers 2, the Japanese one, was the ultimate troll.
Sure,
right?
Lost Levels, yeah.
Yeah.
That was its intention. To just be mean. So it's cool. It's cool. I'm definitely going to plow through this a bit more. I want to see it through to the end. I don't know if I'll find every secret route necessarily, but I'll at the very least finish it. I'll do as much as I can. And the only other thing I've really played on it is I did a little bit of Super Punch Out while Zach was here next time, because I've never played a Punch Out game either. None of them. Not even the NES Classic or the or what is actually quite well regarded Wii version. But Super Punch Out is the one I know very little about, and that game's cool as well. It's more about pattern recognition and stuff like that. That's pretty much all that game is. But it is, even when you think you've figured out what the patterns are, it's still challenging to actually act on them, because I don't know, I'm not very disciplined in my button mashing. is generally the thing. It takes me a long time to learn that stuff, even if I do play fighting games every now and then and things like that. I'm still bad at them because I like to mash. Because I go, oh god, panic, push the buttons. And I very much need to get out of that habit with this. Certain tactics will work sometimes, but they won't work all of the time. You've got to learn your opponent, and it's kind of cool. I kind of like it. It's got a good style to it. It's slightly too much orchid, but that's
classic.
Yeah,
Has
that's a
that
cool
thing
game.
got pilot wings on it? That was a weird game.
It doesn't. No.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, not that much of a shame, but pilot wings was weird.
It is weird, but I don't think it would I think it's probably wise that they didn't put on there because it was that and F-Zero were the first. I want to say the first mode 7.
Yeah, they probably
stuff
look
they put
terrible.
on there.
Yeah.
And I don't. Well, F-Zero's on here, which
Right. Okay.
Again, I've never really played the original all that much, so I'm going to play that. But there's those two. I think were super early mode 7 examples, and then Super Mario Kart came along, and made more of a thing of it, which is on there, so you can play Mario Kart.
Cool.
Which might be fun. Never played a great deal of that back in the day either. Yeah, it's a cool thing, and I'm pacing myself a little bit because I really, really want to play Star Fox properly.
Right. Yeah.
Not Star Fox 2. I'm actually not that fussed about Star Fox 2,
but Star Fox.
but the original Star Fox, because again, I've spent next to no time with that.
Oh, really?
And
I played a bit of Star Fox back in the day. I can't remember.
Oh, really?
I think my cousins had it or something.
Mm.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's such a short game that you can get through it. And I remember actually playing through it. I probably died at the end, but yeah.
But it is supposed to be, it's one of those, and it's not very long, but quite challenging. The first time I played Lilac Wars on the N64, I finished it the first time I played it and thought, really, that's it? But it's only then that you get into the depth of how you figure out the other routes and all the other complications and getting better at it. And it's that
completely.
is Star Fox's strength, and I'm really interested to see what started it all, even if it's probably garbage to play.
It's probably okay. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Lilac Wars is one of my favorite games of all time, and so it's easily. So yeah, I'm hyped for Star Fox. It will probably make up for Zero. So yeah, SNES Classic. It's a cool thing. I haven't got it out of the box, but it does come with a second controller, Zach, if we ever want to do some of the 2-player stuff like Contra. And, maybe it's got the American Final Fantasy 3 on there, which as it turns out is Final Fantasy 6. We were right about that.
Right.
And Final Fantasy 6 is a good one, and one I've spent 19 hours on in the past on the PlayStation version, but never actually finished it. So, I might revisit that. It's 6 is supposed to be for some people is the best one. It's a cool thing. Good selection of games. Oh, Donkey Kong Country! I never played Donkey Kong Country.
Oh wow!
Want to play that?
That's probably quite hard to play.
If anything, the thing I've played the most of on here is probably Super Mario World 2, right? Yoshi's Island. That's probably the one I've played the most of.
Because Zach got obsessed with it on emulator, I seem to remember.
Yeah, he did.
And GBA.
Oh, yeah. And it is one of the prettiest games of that era.
Yeah, it looks great. And I'm often reminded of it because on the Bombcast, it's always funny that Jeff gets so annoyed about it. Seems to hate it so much.
It's a really good game. Yeah, so I'm loving this thing at the moment. It's it's filling in the gaps of my childhood, I suppose. Love it. What a cool thing.
Sweet.
But there is something else I'm playing. Oh, no, very quickly. Before I get into this other thing. Forza Horizon 3 Hot Wheels. What a cool idea. I've only just started playing that, but what a cool idea. That thing is awesome. That's all I want to say right now. I'll play a bit more of it, and then... But yeah, I just hopped into the first few events of it, and it's It's like taking a silly what would be a bad Xbox Live Arcade game, but putting it in a AAA product, and it still being cool. It's cool. I'll come back to that though some other time, because yesterday I kind of binged half of Gears of War 4.
Oh. Where did that come from? You decided to get it on? Was it on a sale or something? Or
no, I'm with the Mobile Operator 3 for my phone, and Woontu, which is their weird sort of like benefits thing, said, "Here, have a month of Game Pass, of Xbox Game Pass." So I was like, "Sweet, I'll have that." And Gears of War 4 recently just became part of Game Pass, so it's like, okay, let's do this. And additionally, just to make it uber cool, it's like I thought, oh, now I've got Game Pass. I wonder what will happen if I look at the Windows Store. Oh, apparently I own Gears of War 4. I'll play it on PC then.
Oh, sweet.
So I don't think it's supposed to work, but in my case, it totally does. I have Game Pass and I can play Gears of War 4 on PC as a result, which may be a good sign for Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
So I'm playing the PC version of that, which has the benefit of I don't think the original Xbox version would play the campaign at 60 frames per second or anything like that. I think that was locked to a hard 30, and the multiplayer was allowed to go to 60. But on PC, obviously, like all bets are off. You can run it how you like.
Yeah.
And straight off the bat, obviously, I went to the options menu to see what it was doing. Like, before you get started, make sure everything's set up right.
Yeah.
It does a really, really good job of explaining to you what each option does and what impact it might have on your experience. Just might be one of the best option systems I've ever seen in a PC video game.
Impressive.
And I know that's not really, it's a bit strange. It's not really important to most people, this stuff, but. It just like you can go down to each option. It give you a description of what that option does.
Yeah, usually you have to go to like some guide that someone's put together on Tom's Hardware to try and figure out what each option does. And
it gives you a nice little description. And not only that, but it has like a little color coded like, oh, this is going to be bad on your CPU. This is going to be bad on your GPU, or this is going to have no problem at all on your RAM, or something like that. And like this is a heavy GPU load option. This is a heavy CPU load option. It goes into that detail if you want it, and it's like, this is actually really interesting. So if my GPU was the weak point in my system and I knew that, I could tailor the options to not load the GPU, but perhaps I'm okay with setting more CPU intensive tasks. And that's a neat idea. I can get behind that. That's cool. Not that I needed to tinker with any of it, because it set most of it to ultra automatically.
Sweet.
And it was just like,
so you have an insane computer.
Yeah, there were a couple of options that had an insanity setting above ultra, but it did warn me, and it's like, no, seriously, use with caution. These are hardcore, and it's like I can probably do without. So I'm running it on.
Turn the stress effects off.
Yeah. Although I did play through all of Tomb Raider with that turned on.
Oh really?
Yeah. It was good tech. Ran like crap, but it was good tech. So it said it all out. I'm running it at 1080. I've been playing it on my TV at 60 frames per second, and it has never skipped a beat. And it's a really good looking game. Like it's a really good looking game. It basically like they have taken all of what it is a replication of the original Gears look and feel, and in a way, perhaps it wasn't too difficult to make that modern from the 360 look to the new look. But it's crisp. The texture detail is excellent. The model detail is excellent. The shadow detail is excellent. It even supports subsurface scattering, so skin tones look really nice. And things like that. It's a properly good looking game, like in that sort of old Gears tradition, I suppose. So good on them for a really decent PC version. Technically, the game itself is a shadow of Gears.
Yeah.
I
think we kind of knew that when we saw the trailer for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it plays like Gears, but to a fault, if you know what I mean. It is so much just Gears so far. And I'd like to say I'm about halfway through. I'm like towards the end of Act 3, which is a really long act, as it turns out, and it's a 5-act thing, just like the originals all were. And it's I don't know, it I don't think it does enough interesting with how you fight the combat. The combat scenarios are a little bit too much like the classic shooting gallery thing, right? You get behind a knee-high wall, pull left trigger to pop up, shoot at some things. Oh, they've ducked behind the wall, so you duck behind the wall. You wait for them to pop up again so you can shoot them, and it's just that ballet. Not really a lot of movement going on,
flanking and stuff.
Yeah. I don't even find myself doing that all that much. Just waiting for people to show their heads so I can shoot them. And your AI companions are somewhat competent, so you can actually just trust on them really to do a fairly decent job on their own of popping outside the wall on occasion. If you get hurt, they do a pretty decent job of coming to you almost immediately to revive you, because that's in there just like it is in the co-op and stuff like that. It's Gears, and it's hard to.
What about the enemies?
I mean, so most of what I've played through, so I've only really, interestingly, Act 3 is kind of about rediscovering, minor spoilers, I suppose, but effectively rediscovering a locust-like enemy. They are pretty much the locust, but they're referred to as the swarm now. But up to that point, you're fighting cog robots, because you're sort of going against the cog in this game, as JD Phoenix,
JT Phoenix.
Yeah, that's your name. You're Marcus Phoenix's son.
It's time for
It's
the
called
JD Power Survey.
Yeah. So you're fighting robots most of the time, which I want to say Binary Domain did better. They add a more satisfying, you blow parts off them and they go all sparky and stuff like that.
And they're clearly not French enough.
They're definitely not French enough. And they all have the same voice, because of course they would. But their voice is quite booming and loud and overtakes everything. So they're like, "It's commencing reload," and it's a really sort of almost overly perky voice, and it's your resistance has been noted, and things like that. It's a little wearisome. They're just not as Gears does better when it's throwing some gore at you. Honestly,
for sure. Awesome.
The enemies were a little more
emotion
reactive.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And they were a little more. I haven't seen any emotion so far, actually. And they were a little more reactive, I suppose. You shot them in the legs and they'd stumble a bit and things like that. The robots don't really. So they're a little dull. More predictable, I suppose, because it meant they could put simpler AI on them, so they're not quite as clever as the Swarm in terms of their movements. And maybe that's good for the first start of the game, but they're not that cool. Which is a bit of a shame. Yeah, they throw in some new enemies as a result of these. You've got some flying things with shields, so you need to take their shields down and then shoot them, then concentrate fire whilst they're vulnerable, and they can have sort of minigun attacks on you, or occasionally throw the odd rocket as well. So, and if you manage to get your team perfectly flanking it, then obviously you can shoot behind the shield. So there's some interesting stuff there, and they make a really ridiculous horn noise when they enter the battlefield. I'm like, wah! It's okay, there's one of those about.
Okay, announcing their presence.
Yeah. And then there's these weird ball things that are kind of the equivalent of the I forget what they were called, imps or whatever they were from the original series, where they would just Oh no, more like the tickers. Do you remember that they were called tickers, weren't they, in Gears of War 3 or something, where these little roach things would come up to you and just explode.
Yeah.
They're basically that, but they're like robot balls. So the robot stuff not as cool. I much prefer fighting the Locust. And yeah, sure enough, you get to do some of that. And there's some new bad guys there, and those finally do force you to move around a bit more, and so that's a little bit more dynamic. But almost like highlights like old Gear problems, and that you have to move within the confines of its movement system. And there's no such thing as climbing. That's just not a thing, really.
Right? Yeah.
So, like you can vault over knee-high stuff, and that's it. Like
still got the roadie run going on.
Yeah, still roadie run. There are some new abilities, like you can like there's the yank and execute is now a thing, so you can like grab someone over a wall and then knife them, but you're vulnerable while you do that because you're just standing up knifing someone. Or there's you can now sort of I think you could do this in the original ones as well, but it was a bit more automatic. But now you have to do an action or something to get it right. Where if you vault over something and there's someone on the other side, you can sort of take them down on the way, which I've never been able to pull off. I don't quite know how to do it. I need to go back and read that tooltip or something. So it's Gears ultimately, and if you want that, fine, you're going to get that. But the biggest problem is these new characters. They ain't got nothing on the old cast.
Well, they're not the Coltrane.
They are not the Coltrane. But not even that. They're not the they don't have that Marcus Santiago Bond thing going on that was cool. You don't have you don't have Snarky Baird. You've got JD. You've got Dell as token black guy, which I'm sorry I have to say that, but that basically seems to be his role. He has no personality, no story. He's just there. And you've got Kate as the daughter of the captured civilian settlement person, who I think was a character from the first game, but I'm not from the first series, but I'm not sure. Who's also not all that interesting. But JD might be the worst offender of all, because it sounds like they're really trying to nail that Nathan Drake / Nathan Fillion thing, and don't.
And do not.
Yeah. So, and to be honest, Act 2 was quite nice because Marcus is there, so you get that gruff annoyedness the entire time.
Oh, cool. Okay, so he's back.
But you're not playing. But he's only there for spoilers. He's only there for Act 2, as far as I can tell. Right. And you're not playing as him. Right. He's around, but so you still get some Marcusness, which is cool. But yeah, and I think this is making me realize quite what and I think I remember talking about this a little bit at the time of the first few Gears games. It's like there was something about that first Gears game, how it was, whilst not, looking back at it, it's not all that mechanically complex. But there's something about the fact that it was like just 4 guys having the worst day, right?
Yeah.
Just living through Emergence Day, and it being a bad scene, and it's more about the writing between them almost than it is the gameplay. Looking back on it, it's like, even though what they're saying isn't all that insightful or clever, there was a dynamic there, and I dug that. And with that gone, it feels like there's just a big old hole. Also, the world doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, no.
Like, it never made
Once you've tied up a trilogy,
made that much sense.
That's where you have to make up bullshit.
Well, yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing with tying up the trilogies and with inventing new enemies. It's kind of the same situation as Halo 4, right?
Yeah. I mean, it makes even less sense, I think, than Halo, because there seems to be this thing. So, do you remember the trailers where they were having a fight in the wind, which made no physics sense anyway? Because as soon as people died, they'd like float.
Oh yeah, that was dumb.
So that's a really big part of this, and they call them wind flares, and they happen like all the time, as it turns out.
Wind flare. Yeah. Everyone starts
big ridiculous storms, and But the thing I don't get about them is, okay, so yeah, the story hinges on them because the Cog are trying to build these new settlements that have like giant walls that like protect them from the wind when it hits and stuff like that. But I'm wondering, like, what the hell is the rest of the world doing? And you're visiting these places that seem mostly fine, but of course a wind flare comes and then tears them apart conveniently while you're there.
Well,
and it's like you're visiting your dad's.
Like quite a recent thing though.
Maybe,
but because the end of the
but it would have to be like.
they-
But it would have to be like super recent, given their frequency and the amount of stuff that's not already messed up. Like you go to Marcus's house, and yeah, his house is kind of messed up, but there's bits of it that are like pristine. Like he has a greenhouse with tomatoes in it and stuff, and that's all fine. And they're like, we'll just go to the barn. The barn's the safest place. It holds during a wind flare. It totally doesn't hold. The whole thing gets destroyed like immediately. And it's like, and it's just like, how does any of this work? How are the wind flares following us? Unless that's a plot point. I don't know.
Or they're just spreading.
Yeah. I don't know. At the moment, it just feels like this world doesn't make sense. How would this entirely wooden settlement survive a wind flare? Anyway.
Right.
I'm having an okay time with it. Let's put it that way. I didn't really want to put it down, and I played like nearly 5 hours of it yesterday.
It's because there aren't that many shooters these days. It seems.
I guess, yeah.
It's like if you've got a really good looking PC shooter, you're going to play it, aren't you? Like even if the story and all the things that used to matter a lot more, are lame.
And ultimately, for all the fact that I think it is Gears and Gears is mechanically simple these days, it is still Gears, and I haven't played a Gears game in a long, long time. So that's working for me. Chunky dudes hiding behind. Everyone is super chunky still. Like there's no small dude in that game. Everyone is massive. I kind of love the stupidity and its style, and I do think it's lost its soul though. I guess is where I'm coming from. Like even certain aspects of like the music, like it hasn't got that like music sting from the originals. Do you remember that sort of like? And things like this.
Yeah, I do remember. It was very distinctive.
Yeah, and it's like it doesn't really. It's still got the guitar noise that plays at the end of a fight, which I love. That sort of wah when you finish an encounter. It's still got that, but cool. Like its music design is and general ambience. It
had quite a lot of
on the original series. Yeah,
didn't it? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
It definitely had atmosphere, especially that first one when starts to get dark and everything, and the krill are going around everywhere.
Oh yeah. The Act 2 was the krill, but for me the standout moment in the original was Act 3, where it's all dark and rainy because you'd never really seen an effect like that in a game before. Yeah. But that whole level is really well paced in terms of like a horror film. It's that's a cool thing.
Is that the one where you end up going down into the like emulsion pits and everything's glowing?
I think it might have been your first trip down there. Yeah,
that was cool. I liked earlier though in Act 2, end of Act 2. Is it like the like petrol station, the gas station thing that you had to defend? Or something?
Oh yeah. That was tough.
That was tough. And then you got the stupid car thing or whatever, you had to, and that was like a stupid mini game where you had to like be in the light and stuff. Or is that right?
That was pretty much all of Act 2. Stay in the light because the krill will get you.
Yeah, but I mean, it was cool. It had a lot of atmosphere, that game, even though the story wasn't like, and the world didn't have that much depth like a Half-Life or a Metal Gear or something. There wasn't that much to it.
But I think that worked in the first game's favor, as I said, because it's just 4 guys having a bad day. No one really knew what was going on at all.
Exactly.
And that kind of works. And they do try and do that again here because they don't know what the swarm is, like, or what they've stumbled upon. Things are different enough that they don't think it's the Locust, although they look a lot like Locust. That there's something else going on, and they try and play that card again, and it doesn't work, or it doesn't hit as hard. It's like, you can't. I don't know if you can do that whole "we're having a bad day" thing a second time necessarily. I don't know. It's not as good, but it is reminding me of what I liked about Gears, which isn't a bad thing. That's me.
Cool.
Sorry, I gabbed on for a long time there. I know, but I had some.
That's okay. We're out of time. But anyway, we've got a game. We've got a game to talk about. So, yeah, Zeg, what have you been playing?
Well, some patches came out that I was waiting for, but I haven't actually gone back to Subnautica, even though that did get patched. So now you can get the last 2 achievements.
Oh wow! Okay.
So maybe I'll get round to doing that. Maybe. Patch also came in that I was waiting for Factorio, so I went back to that some more and actually played the new stuff in the new version. I actually played it long enough to get to the new stuff in the new version.
Right.
The artillery turret and whatnot.
Does it change all that much?
It's kind of cool. I mean, it's not as ridiculous as I initially thought it was going to be, which was sort of a disappointment then when I actually built it. And I was like, oh, this doesn't have quite as ridiculous range as I initially suspected. It's quite long, but not that far. And there is like technology you can research to increase its range, but only after you've launched the rocket. So essentially, after you finish the game, it's in the infinite research category where the ridiculous end game stuff that's not really part of the game exactly. It's for the crazy people who like to build mega bases and all that. But by default, it's still fairly useful. Although it's really without the research to extend the range, the default is better when it's the train-mounted version of the artillery, because then you can just move the train
of course.
around.
Right. That makes sense. It's like I need to sort the range out for this thing, so I'll just move it.
Yeah, you can just build a station and just have it go there and then shoot, and it's automatic as well. Technically, you could. It's slightly weird because it has an automated range and like a manual range, and the manual range is like much longer than the automated range. Although I don't know how much longer because it shows the automated range on the map overlay. Like here's the circle, but it doesn't tell you how far the non-automated range is.
Right.
So like it's somewhere. Like you can just click on the map and shoot at it. It's hell expensive though.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, this is kind of a cool idea. This whole like track-mounted artillery thing. Is that really? I don't know. Like in an automated way or in a way that you design. I don't know if that's been a thing in a game before. Really, has it? Like, I don't know, it sounds like a really neat sort of. Maybe it's me overthinking it a little bit, but I kind of think that that's a really cool base building. Thing that.
Well, it's because it's like the idea of like I guess it's the reason it's called in Factorio is because it means you don't have to just build an entire wall across the entire continent and put turrets along every inch of the goddamn wall.
Sure.
In order to stop the enemies coming in. You basically have a mobile defense point. I mean, it's not for the same thing as the turrets, really. What it actually does is because it targets the enemy bases, it clears out all the spawners in the ring. And because of the way your pollution aggroes the enemies, if the enemies are not inside your pollution cloud, then they basically don't attack you any longer. So the whole point of the artillery is you just clear out the zone, so you don't have to wall it off any longer, because the artillery automatically clears out any new bases that spawn. So you can not have to worry about having a literal defensive wall around every inch of your territory. And that's why it's good in Factorio, because that was always the problem with, particularly in like the Death World, where the enemies are the main. The enemies just cover every goddamn inch of the map in Death World. Now you can have a way to create a safe zone that doesn't require you to build an entirely cross-continental wall and have turrets all over it.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is kind of nice. It does still require you to implement some amount of defense, because although it will shoot at the spawners from miles away, as soon as the spawners get shot, every enemy that's in the vicinity will automatically know where the artillery turret is, and will just come to it. So I've made a blueprint for that, where it's just like, it's basically a train station inside a wall with the artillery turret, and then like turrets around the edge. So you just plop that down wherever you need it to go, send the train with the artillery wagon on, trundle up there, take a shot, and then after you're done clearing out the zone, disassemble it, or just leave that station there for an automatic system where it goes to every one of the train stations. And of course, because of the way the automatic train system works, the process of the artillery firing is classed as activity. So when you're using the train, or like the train conditional weight system, you can just say one of the options has always been so many seconds of inactivity, which is normally used for inserters putting stuff into wagons.
Right.
But because they've set it for the artillery to also trigger that condition, you can have it so that basically you fully automatically have the artillery train drive to a station. If there's nothing in range, then it automatically just moves on to the next one.
Oh, I see. So it's doing. Okay, yeah, I get it. So it's effectively got a patrol route in a way.
Yeah, to keep an area clear without you having to worry about it.
Mm.
So yeah, very useful for late game. Expensive. You're basically firing a goddamn radar with every shot, which is silly, but you have to make that artillery shell pretty expensive for such a late game technology. But it is literally a radar. You make a radar and you put it in there. The artillery shell is made of like a radar, some explosives, and some extra steel. Okay. Because the artillery shots also actually were I mean, you could argue for like you'd need some kind of tracking or whatever for long range artillery, so maybe you'd have a radar per shot or whatever. But they also actually reveal the map as the artillery bullets are flying.
Right, I was going to ask. It's like, so are these revealing things to you as they fly? And it's like, oh, okay, no, they are. All right.
Which is maybe slightly weird in like because it will shoot at enemy bases that you don't necessarily know where they are. Like the turret knows where the enemy bases are, but they're not necessarily visible to you because of the way the radar scans the map over time. The enemies could have formed a new base on a sector that you haven't recently scanned, but the artillery turret will still find it.
Oh, right, that's probably a bug.
Well, not really. It's just like a lazy way of programming it, more than a bug.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that like the classic thing is like surely like if it's in your fog of war or whatever, that's when the turret should be able to see it. Like before that, like why does the turret know it's there?
Yeah, maybe. It would make it less convenient. I mean, really, the way to fix that is just rework the way radar works rather than the way the artillery turret works. Because the way it scans in chunks over time is way too slow to be useful, and also radar in Factorio is generally way too short range to be useful. Like the actual area it reveals continuously rather than the scanned area is almost completely uselessly tiny, and the scanned area is too slow to be useful. So you either have to build radars everywhere or a huge pile of radars in one space so the scan speed of them all combines, basically. So I think if they rework the radar, it would just be a better option to excuse the way the turret can find bases that technically you haven't seen yet. So there's that. And there's even been another patch for Dwarf Fortress, so I haven't continued playing that.
Another one?
Yes, another bug fixing patch. And some new stuff. You can now go and raid sites outside of your fortress. You can send squads out off the map to go and raid them and demand tribute and stuff. Steal all their shit. Because why not?
Assassin's contract.
Yeah, exactly. And then, obviously, as we said, I was going to play Into the Breach after it came out. And then made videos of it, which I've only uploaded 2 of so far, but there's more of them.
They're on YouTube. Check them out. On our YouTube channel.
Yep.
Just type Happy Salad into YouTube and you will get some Into the Breach goodness from Zeg.
Probably. You probably actually won't see those videos. You'll probably see a bunch of other videos that have way more views.
You'll probably see Magnum Opus.
Yeah, exactly.
You see them if you go to the latest videos on our channel.
Well, if you go to the channel, yes. But I mean, if you search for Happy Sounds on YouTube, I bet the Into the Breach ones won't turn up.
Okay. I bet we don't turn up.
Maybe.
I'm going to try it.
I did have a weird moment.
You guys carry on, I'm going to try it.
I did have when I uploaded the first Into the Breach video, I tried, on my personal YouTube account, I tried searching for it to see if I could find it, and for some reason it wasn't appearing even in a fairly specific search. And I was like, well, that's weird and disappointing. Damn you, YouTube.
Yeah, your funny search system.
But, unlike at Opus Magnum, where the video got quite a lot of views compared to most of our videos, the Into the Breach one has got virtually none because way more people made videos of Into the Breach on launch day, as it turns out. What a surprise.
Well, I get Shatter as the top one,
Yeah, boy, this search is weird.
and then Worms United.
Man,
which-
Shatter is like one of the first videos on our channel.
So our channel appears third on the list because there's someone called Almost Happy Salad that's got more videos. And then there's someone doing the Ice Bucket Challenge
Okay, great.
called Happy Salad Rito. And then there's our channel. And then there's something about actual salad. And then there's Shatter and Worms United. Worms makes a bit of sense because it's like a high view count. But yeah, Shatter, what's that about? And then there's a few more other weird
Worms
things.
2.
And then Snapshot and Kerbal.
Yep.
All of our ancient videos.
Yeah, why is it putting the really old stuff? And then Beat Buddy.
Sonic
Well, that's
Generations.
at least not as old.
And then, it's a weird... And then Flat Out.
That's the worst video.
Worst video.
That should just be deleted.
Yeah, I should probably should get rid of that.
Sonic Adventure Part 3 for some reason.
Final Fantasy 7 Part 30, and then FTL. Yeah, this is
Anyway.
weird.
Yeah,
The search order is not right. Like, you'd expect we should. It should put like Magnum Opus right up there in theory.
You would hope that it would put the most recent videos in there. Maybe not necessarily always by default put the most recent videos, but
Yeah.
you expect them to be on like the first page, maybe.
Anyway, Into the Breach. Videos are available. What do you think of it, Zeg?
Doesn't work nearly as well if you follow its suggestion to have Happy and Salad with a space.
No.
Then it doesn't work. But
Well, it's a pretty good game, I guess.
It's a pretty good game.
you guess.
It's like FTL was hard. I remember FTL being quite hard, but
Well, yes,
FTL was balls hard. Yeah, I never finished it.
yeah. So this is also hard. I
but
would
not
say.
as hard. It's way easier than FTL overall.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I'm finding it quite tough.
I
I think.
For a start, the last boss is piss easy Into the Breach compared to the last boss of FTL.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. With FTL, you had to kind of prepare, right? You had to kind of know what was coming, really.
Well, yeah, in FTL, you actually had to make a build, and you had to know like what mainly like there was different ways to solve the last boss problem, but you had to know what those were, and you had to figure ahead to be like, which one of these can I aim to do? It's like, if I'm going to go teleporter, I have to kind of commit to going teleporter quite early on in order to upgrade the teleporter by the time I get to the last boss and have upgraded crew and whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in Into the Breach, pretty much, I'm not sure if it's actually doing something secretive on purpose, but I feel like no matter what you're doing, it always becomes viable. And I feel like in the shops at the end of each island, you often get like equipment that actually synergizes with what you already have, like more often than it would randomly, or it feels like to me.
That's quite nice, though. I don't know. It's really frustrating seeing stuff that's totally the opposite of what you want, right? In the FTL shops.
Yeah. And I don't know whether it is actually doing that or whether it just seems like it. Whether I've just coincidentally got things that were good. Or maybe maybe things in general just have more than one synergy or whatever. So things that I think are like synergizing with what I already have will just synergize with several things.
Man.
Yeah. I played a lot of the different squads already.
Oh, you've played all the way. I mean, I've only
Not
played
a lot of them.
I've only had one little session on it, so I'm only sort of learning the basics, basically. I'm still screwing up quite a lot on the first island, but played that through a few times.
The thing that I found weird about when I was watching early reviews and impressions of that game is like a lot of people focused on the like pushing enemies around because that is like it's the primary mechanic of the first squad, and it is still quite important for the other squads, but not as like primary mechanic as it is in the first squad. Right.
Well, because they all push things in the first squad, right? Don't they?
Yeah. They have 3 different versions of push, basically.
So I'm not very good at the pushing. Like I'm okay, but then at least twice I've pushed. I've been stupid and pushed a guy who was attacking a city so that he attacks just another city. It's like, what am I doing?
The thing that always gets me is pushing people into cities, because it's way too easy
Yeah.
to forget that you can't. When you're doing an attack that pushes and it pushes them in the direction of a city, the city still takes damage, and it's like that doesn't actually help.
The other thing I need to learn that I haven't yet is that for some reason I keep making the mistake thinking that every enemy attack deals 1 damage, and of course it doesn't. Like I'm like,
Well,
oh, they can take 1 hit
in the
there,
early
and then they
game,
die,
yes.
and I'm like, oh fuck.
In the early game, a lot of stuff does 1 damage.
Yeah, so I was just assuming I was going to have 1 damage when I didn't look properly, and then I got like airstrike to death or something instantly, or like
Really, the only thing that doesn't do 1 damage in the early game is the Leapers. Those like mantis things that only have 1 hit point, but they do 3 damage.
Mm.
Most of the other stuff only does 1 until you get the alpha versions of the enemies, and then everything starts doing 3 damage at least.
I haven't worked out the strategy for where to place my guys at the start. I don't know if it matters that much, but I try to pick the right places, I think, but then it always, I don't know, the enemies can move quite far, so I usually screw it. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do, like space them apart, or
it can depend on the layout of the actual level layout.
Yeah,
so I've definitely seen situations where people have been completely boned by there being like a line of buildings, and they put all their units on one side of the line, so they didn't really have a path to get round to the other side.
Yeah, because you can get blocked quite easily because it's not very many tiles really.
And the other thing that is a habit that I had to get out of as well, that you often see people do, is like treating the artillery as though it were an artillery unit that has to be protected in the rear. Because it doesn't really. It's just as useful to be... Actually, it's almost more useful to be at the front line so you can get a shot along the line, basically, instead of from the rear. Instead of moving yourself left or right at the rear to fire at an enemy, you want to move in line with them and shoot across that way. It's still equally viable. And there's no concept of... It's not like the artillery unit is like more mushy or anything. It still has... I mean, normally it has lower hit points.
It has slightly less hit points, right?
It doesn't like have... It's not like a Humvee or whatever where compared to a tank or anything. It's still just a big old mech. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. I mean...
So really the only thing that I now that I've got used to putting people in vaguely the right places, the only thing I still have to watch out for is remembering to look out for the scorpions, like the ones that web, and not putting units that have trouble with webs in a place where they can immediately get webbed on the first turn.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's a good tip. I 2 times I played through the starting island, and I've had one of my guys get killed, and then it's an AI guy. When do you get new guys like an FTL or?
Well, the time pods is the main place you get new guys.
Right.
And if you get a perfect island, you can get a new pilot as a reward.
Oh, cool. Okay, got a few of those.
But mainly time pods. And time pods seem pretty common, considering.
Yeah. Do you rush over to get the time pods, or do you like...
Most of the time. I mean, it seems like, again, this is another one of those things where it's like, I'm not certain it's actually happening or not, but it seems like the enemies are actually kind of programmed not to deliberately stand on the time pod.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be a lot of times where they easily could just move to that space and destroy it, but they don't. Like, they deliberately don't move to that space.
What are time pods?
It's just like randomly on some maps, a time pod comes down and you just get it, and you get a pilot or a piece of equipment, and then usually a reactor core as well.
Oh, I see, just like a freebie.
Yeah, just a free random thing.
Yeah, and reactor core is pretty good, just like
the reactor core is what you want.
Yeah.
Put those in your mech and upgrade the abilities.
I feel like when you're in the shop, you know, they cost like 3 reputation for a reactor core, but it seems like it's probably worth getting those rather than...
It's virtually the only thing you want in the shop.
Or do you top up your, a bit like FTL, but do you top up your grid defense and then get some reactor cores? Or
not really. It's like... if you compared it to the FTL, what I do in FTL is like I'd repair up to a point, but I'd always leave a few open.
But you start the game with not with 2 empty grid. So,
but a lot of the time you're just getting the grid bonus back from the missions anyway.
Right.
If you do the bonus objectives that give you grid.
Mm.
Although then I've got to the point where I'm like not even doing that now. I'm prioritizing the ones that just give you 2 points of rep. Because
exactly. Because then you can trade it.
Not taking grid damage.
Right. Yeah,
and you can just spend rep to get grid damage anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
You may as well always go for the most rep.
Rep.
The reputation, the corporation. It's basically just the currency that you spend at the end of the map.
Okay. Victory points.
Yeah, victory points.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just need to get better at it. I think it's just because I got reasonably good at FTL. It did kick my ass at first. To be sure.
Well, I mean, it's a different thing anyway, because you're like...
It's more your style, Zach. It's like a puzzle game, so...
Well, yeah, the whole point of this game is like, it's virtually not random at all. Everything is laid out beforehand. And you
unlike
just have to
FTL, really, which had quite a bit of random bits for like knocking out your...
And the other thing that I realised about the FTL is like it's not just random on like percentage-based chance or whatever like there is, but it's also random because... there's things in FDL that are timing based essentially.
Yeah.
Like the exact frame of the game where you trigger your gun can significantly affect the outcome of the shots.
Yeah, it's true.
In FDL. Whereas in this game it's purely turn based. So you just look at the situation and work out how to solve it.
Look at it for a long time and then die.
Quite a long time. And that's the other thing where it's like I've seen people discussing, and I have the suspicion of like if the AI is deliberately setting up in a way that's making a solvable puzzle, it's pretty goddamn good at it. But if it's just coincidentally that your abilities allow you to always solve every one of these puzzles, then that's also that like the abilities are well designed then. Even the AI is doing something real smart where it's like figuring out what your abilities are and like setting up its units to make it possible to counteract them most of the time. Or the set of skills is just so well designed that it allows you to counter them all the time.
But I don't think it's true that you could perfect every game. Do you think? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like I've gotten pretty close.
Oh, really?
There's definitely been runs where I won't say I've gotten away without taking any grid damage, but maybe like a couple.
Right.
And I've ended up with like 30% or more grid defense just because I'm getting the bonuses and not ever having to repair. And it can depend on the team, obviously, depending on what your skills are and how easy they are compared to... And to some extent, after the first few runs, once you've unlocked the ability to choose which island to start on, that becomes part of the tactics as well, where it's like, what skills do my guys have? What ones of these enemies will be more difficult to deal with? Mainly based on which buff is the most difficult to deal with. If you're going to have problems with health regen, like if you're not going to kill everything in one shot, get that out of the way first. Or if you're going to have problems with armored enemies, get that out of the way first. And to some extent, the terrain hazards, which ones you might have problems with. Like the last run I did a run with the team that's about basically its main mechanic is forcing the enemies to attack each other. So all of its movement, cool. It's all about movement, and you don't actually do very much direct damage.
That sounds fun.
I had a lot of trouble on that one on like the desert island because of there not being as many opportunities to like kill enemies with environmental hazards. Because like the first island, there's tons of water all over the place.
Yeah, and
then like the icy island, there's a lot of opportunity to freeze things because it's the icy island. And the technology island has acid pools, so that's where that comes in. But the desert is basically occasionally canyons that you can chuck stuff into, but not really any other environmental damage opportunities. So that made that group that was mostly about maneuvering and not very much actual damage much harder on that island.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So
I think
I don't know. You like it better than FTL, or
I don't know about better than FTL. I mean,
the same,
maybe,
really.
Yeah, the same as FTL.
Yeah, I think I agree. Although I need to play a lot more. But I really liked FTL, but I do like that this doesn't have the randomness, and that's good.
It's certainly not any quicker than FTL. It
to
still
play
takes
through?
a real long time.
Oh,
to
it
do
takes
one
ages.
run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's ultimately what started putting me off FTL after a while, in that it's like
Well, it's like the same thing you said about Isaac as well.
Yeah.
It's just like
the runs are a bit long.
Yeah.
at least in
well,
this
I
game,
mean,
it's like more legitimately easy to stop at any time.
well, in FTL you can stop when.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can.
FTL is split up kind of similarly, right? You use the system.
Yeah, pick a mission basically.
Yeah.
Except in FTL, you don't get to see what's ahead of you until you get there.
Yeah,
Whereas in this, you can choose which mission objective you want to do, which makes it easier.
that's true.
Like, don't do the ones where it's kill 7 enemies until you think that you actually can do that.
Right. Yeah.
Or you can exploit the environment to do it.
How's that soundtrack?
Good.
It's not as memorable as
not
FTL.
as
I don't
good.
think.
Right,
But
yeah, because it's the same guy, isn't it? It's this Ben Prunty fella.
I think some of the tracks are better than others. Like I quite like
Yeah.
the music of the technology island. I think that has the best general music for its battle scenes. But even the starting island is quite nice. Some of them, and even within one island, some of the tracks are better than others, I guess.
The kind of victory music or whatever at the end of the island is pretty good.
Yes, because it has like the little victory sting at the end of the battle, but then when you complete the whole island, it just extends it into an actual song.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Or not really a song; it's still really a jingle, I guess, like
Yeah.
a 30-second loop or whatever. But yes, it's quite a nice. It's a nice
Is it
victory
like-
music.
Is it like how Final Fantasy does this all like after every fight? But you know, like you get the main jingle is the da 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 da, but then in the various
It's
like
got-
Final
yeah.
Fantasy games, you've got the follow on from it that's different.
It's a bit more like direct than that, though.
Right.
Like the jingle is just literally the start of the long version of the. It's
Right.
not. It's the start of the loop. So when it loops, it's still playing that same bit. It's not like the Final Fantasy one where the jingle is like almost a completely separate thing.
Sure.
And yeah, and then you time travel and start again.
You definitely do.
And I've been using basically the same pilot the entire time.
Oh, really?
Because I the one that you start with is obviously he's meant to be bad, I guess.
Right.
Because his skill is just he gains extra experience, but it's not even that difficult to level. They only have 3 levels, so it's not even that difficult to level them up. Really,
He looks really kind of gaunt and weird, that guy as well.
yeah. I mean, he's like, I guess that's like he's meant to be the time traveler who's done it a lot. I guess
Right,
that's why
yeah.
his bonus is the experience bonus.
Yeah.
He's experienced or whatever. But yeah, I just ended up using the guy who lets whatever mech he's in move through enemies.
Oh, cool. That's
It's like-
awesome.
I mean, obviously
I want that.
flying gives you a better version of that because then you can also fly over water and whatnot and still be able to attack. But being able to move through enemies even on just land is hella useful.
Yeah.
To be able to outmaneuver or get out of blocking. Because a lot of people I've seen saying the one pilot they use is the guy who gives whatever mech he's in armored. And I mean, that makes sense. Particularly if you're struggling in the early levels. Having an armored mech is, it basically negates every one damage hit.
Right.
And some of the actual mech teams start with one of their mechs being armored by default, so you don't even need that pilot for that bonus in those teams. But yeah, armor definitely makes it easier in the early game. But I don't think it's necessarily that vital later on. And then, at some point you just don't get hit. It's the whole idea.
What, once you get awesome at it?
Yeah, what do you learn how to do? And also, in case anyone's thinking about like the different mech squads and thinking that they want to stick with the first one, I can tell you that much like FTL and the NG ship, the second squad is way easier.
Yeah.
It's pretty much exactly like the NG ship in FTL.
Oh, the
I
NG ship
never
was
played
awesome.
I never actually ended up playing any of the other ships in FTL because I just couldn't finish that starter.
Yeah, that first ship in FTL is like way harder than the NG ship.
It's true.
Quite a lot.
Because the NG ship has all the power to like disable people all the
Well, yeah,
time. Like, ion
it's-
stuff all the time.
It's that weird it's the weird thing, and it also happens in Into the Breach, where the engine ship's ion cannon thing. You look at it initially, and you're like, well, how the fuck do I do damage? And it's all about the drone and doing the damage. But what you don't understand until you start using it is like that, because it's the really fast firing ion pulse on the engine ship. You just, whatever target system you target at, it eats through all of the shields, and then it will disable whatever system you're aiming at as well.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's so powerful.
Wait, did we play that, or did we just get the cannon
I don't remember.
on our run?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think we were using a disable play.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the video.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But yeah, and so the second squadron Into the Breach, like initially you think, well, all they do is make smoke, and the smoke does damage. But the smoke also cancels any enemy attack. So you're basically like the jet. The main mech in that is a jet, and its attack is to like jump over an enemy and drop smoke on it, which does 1 damage, creates a smoke cloud which cancels the enemy attack, and then at the end of the turn, the smoke does damage.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
So it's already ridiculously powerful in that way. And then when you upgrade that smoke bomb weapon with reactor cores, it becomes even more ridiculous. Like you upgrade it so it can jump 2 squares instead of 1, so you're also creating twice as much smoke. And then you get another upgrade that makes it do even more damage directly.
Man.
And basically that team is basically about covering the entire battlefield with as much smoke as possible. Because enemies won't even deliberately go into smoke unless they don't have any other option. So if you're, say, trying to defend a building, you just put smoke on all the squares around it, and the enemies will never go there. Because they literally can't attack from those spaces with smoke on.
Amazing. Okay, so I think I'm going to take it slow and like play through with the first squad, maybe on easy mode, just to see if I can learn to play the game.
I've heard a lot of recommendations about playing this in easy first.
Well, that's what I did with FTL until I learned how to do it.
I mean, I do think that this game is way easier than FTL, and like, I don't think you should struggle as much playing this on normal. I think easy is almost too easy from what I've seen of it.
Really?
You get fewer enemies, where it's like in easy, it seems like you're basically wiping out all the enemies every turn as they spawn. Which is like, that's kind of too easy.
Yeah, that's too easy. Yeah. Okay, I'll see what I can do. Maybe I'll get better at it. Hopefully I'll get to the second squad with the awesome smoke.
Yeah. I feel like the main trick to it is basically working out how to get reactor cores. Get that corporate reputation and get the reactor cores, and then figure out what the ideal upgrade path is. Right, yeah. Because obviously with the first squad, it's like you immediately put the first reactor core, you get into the artillery's building immunity.
Right, yeah, that one's awesome.
Does this game still have the ability to like screw you with random then? Like,
well, not really, because there's not really any random in it.
Yeah, because that's what I'm sort of trying to.
Well, the maps are, but they can't really screw you, can they? But they are.
Well, they're random, but they're not like extremely random, I guess. And also, you get to see the map before you start the mission. So if you want, you can just avoid missions that look like they're going to be bad.
Yeah, because the only reason I ask is because that was one of. I mean, it's a classic thing with that style of game. But in FTL, you could go from being quite well off to screwed just because of how the area you're in plays out. Right? It's like, oh, I actually haven't got enough fuel to get across this area unless I stumble across some fuel, and then I didn't. And it's like, great. Couldn't have done anything about that.
Yeah, kinda, I guess.
I had no choice but to fail this run, but you've just eked it out for the length of this sector.
Yeah, I suppose. That was where like the only tactic you had in FTL at that point was knowing the way like the map worked, where it was like you want to go to the systems that are connected to as many other systems as possible in order to hope there's a shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Or hope you stumble upon an encounter where you just gain what you need.
Yeah. But yeah, there's basically no random. The only random thing is like the percentage chance for buildings to resist damage. And ideally, you're not letting that happen ever. So you don't need to rely on that percentage.
All right, cool. I mean, I know very little about this game other than I've seen a couple of reviews and to just get a feel for what it is, and it's Yeah, it does look interesting in its own special way. It definitely has that FTL look, though, right?
Well, I mean, it's the same
For
font.
sure.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's the exact same font, and it's like, yeah, that looks like an FTL interface.
Mm.
It's nice looking though.
Although, speaking of interface, the one thing that is very well done is the way that you can, where if you look at your attacks, it shows a preview that shows you exactly what it does, and for all the enemy attacks as well.
Yeah.
It shows you a little animated GIF basically of what the attack does.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's real useful.
And the attack order thing is useful too.
Yeah, yes, and the
turn
attack order.
Yeah.
Although that's more of a necessary thing for the way the game works, I guess.
Mm.
Since it's all laid out in advance and you're having to deal with things.
Yeah, because you haven't really. I don't know if you mentioned this earlier. If you did, I apologise. But that's this game's hook, right? Isn't it? That it's you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so you have to adjust it in a certain way.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that to me, my sort of tactical strategy game head, it's the one thing that is both the best and worst thing about those games is the percentage chance, right? Yeah. Whereas if this is a step away from that, and it's just a pure battle of wits and like a chess game or something like that, I think I can get behind this perhaps in a bigger way than I normally would.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
And always make sure you check the attack order because sometimes the environment happens first and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
The environment happens.
Yes. That's why you need that attack order thing. You need to make sure you're looking because fire damage happens first, and then environment, and then enemies, and then NPCs.
How do you know? Can you tell if which enemy goes before which other enemy, so that you can tell if one's going to shoot the other one?
Why,
are they numbered?
Numbers on them when you mouse over the attack order.
Ah, okay. But it says 2 to 5 or whatever. Can you?
Well, it's because it always reserves 1 for environment or 1 for fire damage, even if there isn't any.
So then, what do you do? You mouse over the enemies, and it has the number there of which
when you're highlighting the attack order, the numbers are on the enemies, so it just tells you.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Attack first.
Oh, cool. That's handy. Okay. Awesome sauce. Right, I should get back to playing.
Yeah.
We've gone way over. We should probably talk about that again next time, although you probably have moved on to something completely different by then. Zeg,
I've got a few more squads to do.
Okay. But I think that's it. So
it's Exactry it.
Yeah. Exactly. So thanks for joining us, listeners. We'll check out those Into the Breach videos on YouTube. And we'll catch you for another Saladcast in a couple of weeks.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hopefully I'll have the new theme tune done by then.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Yes.
It's real dumb. It's dumber than you can imagine. It's not anywhere near finished, but it's dumb.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Can't wait.
Spoilers.
Bye.